Hayat, you can start.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning. My name is Hayate Fatima, and I will be your host for the MitKat Annual Risk Symposium, Mars 2026, APAC edition, a platform that connects security professionals globally. Speaking of globally, it's amazing to see people joining us today from 11 to 12 different time zones. A big thank you to all for making the time to be here, even though you may be at an odd hour on your end. It's truly wonderful to have you with us here today. Just a few announcements before we begin. For those interested, you can see today's discussion on our YouTube channel once uploaded. If you have any questions for the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box, which is separate from the chat box. Now, moving on to our agenda for the day. So, first, we will start with the opening keynote address by Lieutenant General Sudhir Sharma, Chairman, MidCat Advisory. Then, we have a panel discussion on APAC Risk Outlook 2026, moderated by Sushil Pradhan, Executive Director and COO, MidCat Advisory. Atreya Bhatt, our intelligence manager for Asia Pacific, will then unveil APAC Risk Outlook 2026, and Abhijit Kode, product manager MidCat, will give a demo of MidCat's OSINT risk intelligence platform datasurfer.ai. This will then be followed by a panel discussion on trends in intelligence, security, and loss prevention, moderated by Mitesh Shah, Regional Director, MidCat Advisory. The final panel for the day will delve on technology security, chaired by Pawan Desai, CEO, MidCat Advisory. The summing up and closing remarks will then be delivered by Neelkant Iyer, Chief Revenue Officer, MidCat Advisory, to close the proceedings. And with that, let us begin today's event. It is my honor to invite Lieutenant General Sudhir Sharma, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Yudh Seva Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal, and Chairman, MidCat Advisory, to deliver the opening keynote. General Sharma has many laurels to his credit. The general has commanded the largest field force in the world. He modernized the logistics of the 1.13 million strong Indian army and was India's defense attaché in London at the turn of the century. General Sharma has been decorated for exceptional gallantry in the face of enemy and for distinguished service of highest order to the nation, including on occasions by the President of Republic of India. He is on board of governors and advisors of global corporations and has successfully mentored several startups. I could go on and on, but I will stop here. Over to you, General, to get us off to a flying start as always.
Thank you, Haya. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure again to be at this forum, and we do it every year annually. And this is a place where we step back from the headlines and look at things as they are. And today is no exception. I would like to bring to you what are the global risks operating in the environment that affect the Asia Pacific environment. Now, I would like to start with one basic premise or central theme that the global risks are no longer cyclic or episodic. In fact, they are structural. The entire structural edifice on which rested the complete global order has been fractured. So we're not transiting from a global disorder towards something in order. This is not going to go back to some kind of equilibrium. Things have dramatically changed for a long time to come, and therefore we'll have to live with the kind of very fractured global order that we see today, which is carrying on with it. It has got a lot of impact on the Asia Pacific region. As you're aware, the Asia Pacific region is a very big part of the globe, nearly 30% of the globe, nearly 4.8 billion people residing here. 58% of 68% of the world's GDP grows from here. But we are a very dependent region. Our trade corridors pass through the complete maritime boundaries of here. We export a lot of material. We import a lot of energy. And we are dependent upon a lot of other countries for lots of things happening. So therefore, the global shocks impact Asia Pacific dramatically. And therefore, we are not prone to them, even if there are things happening a little far away from us. Let's start with how this is going to affect the Asia Pacific region. My first statement is that from the period of assumptions, we are moving to an area of assertion. By this, I mean that we all assumed there was a global openness of trade, there was strategic restraint, there were economic, interdependence. All these things were happening. That has been replaced today by kind of assertive behavior of all nations, where nation comes first and national priorities and national interests are subordinate to any alliance that will take place later. You're aware that macroeconomic functions used to function on a principle of efficiency. That means that whenever things are efficient, where global supply chains are efficient, where supply is efficient, where labor is efficient, we used to go for that. That is no longer true today. Today, resilience has eats efficiency for breakfast every morning. That means that we are now going from just in time to just in case for resilience, and now moving to just in sovereign waters or just in friends. That means today our complete dependence is on whom we can totally trust, which means possibly ourselves only. And therefore, the whole system is getting more and more fractured. So, from assumption to assertions are taking place, national interests are now priority over all countries. And this is also a cooperation to competition. We used to have strategic cooperation in the past, now it's strategic competition. Competition for rare earths, competition for minerals, competition for energy, competition for technology. Everywhere we are competing, and national interest dominates, and therefore hypernationalism is taking part in lots of the world. Now, I'd like to come to a few strategic signals which are coming to us from Davos. Why I use the word Davos is because a lot of things happening there impact our region, and we've got to keep an eye on geopolitical trends which are emerging there to see what's happening here. First is strategic coercion. This has become a normal currency of the world. And by strategic coercion, I mean the complete range of it. It starts from, military coercion, boarding of oil tankers or the Russian oil tankers, picking up Mr. Maduro from Venezuela, or threatening people or hitting Iran. These are the military dimension of strategic coercion. Second is the financial coercion by putting tariffs and putting barriers to trade. Third is by denying energy access or stopping people from picking up energy from where they want to do so. This is also a part of coercion which takes place. There is technological coercion, denial of high technology, denial of chips, denial of access, or denial of capital. All this forms part of strategic coercion which takes place, and therefore making lots of countries align to somebody or the other, and therefore strategic autonomy becomes weakened. Now, coming to strategic autonomy, the Prime Minister of Canada made a very strong statement yesterday. Strategic autonomy now is a mirage for middle countries like Japan, Australia, India, in the region, even Vietnam. Strategic autonomy is no longer very possible because the kind of pressure that can put to bear on middle countries is so enormous that they'll have to forego the strategic autonomy. So then what is suggested is that countries of the region have got to bind together more strongly, like create a kind of a loose federation of strategic autonomy so we're able to deal with the hegemonic powers more carefully. And that is the kind of thought that is coming to the world. Countries like India, Australia, Japan, which treasured their strategic autonomy and didn't want to be part of any group, are now facing the dilemma because strategic autonomy comes at a cost. You can only be autonomous if you have energy, if you have food, if you have a credible military force, and if you've got technology which you can control. If these things are under your control, you have a reasonable degree of strategic autonomy. Today, we see that all countries do not have everything. They have to depend on others for it. And therefore, unless we align together, we're going to be a little bit of trouble. Next, I want to talk to you about the pivot to the Western Hemisphere. Now, this is something which I want to talk about because, again, it affects Asia Pacific. The so-called domino doctrine, which you've heard of, where it talks about that USA wants to pivot again to the Western Hemisphere and feel that it is within its strategic region. So that doesn't mean that it will stop looking towards the Indo-Pacific or Asia-Pacific as the area of its interest. In fact, I think it's going to become more hotly contested because once it secures its Western flag, it secures the energy corridor from Venezuela or wherever it is, then it's got enough time to concentrate its forces towards the Asia Pacific to dominate which he wants to do that. So therefore, the pivot to Western Hemisphere does not remove the pivot to Asia Pacific, which US had done. In fact, it reinforces that is my assumption. And why it matters for Asia Pacific again? Again, Asia Pacific gets involved in the politics of the great powers, whether it's Russia, China, or USA. We in Asia Pacific, small nations put together, we get very much affected by the going on there decades. Next, I want to talk about one statement I want to make about AI and deep tech. Now, this is the region, Asia Pacific, which innovates, creates, and does so much of work in the artificial intelligence quantum space. Now, this is being hotly contested because technology is being denied to lots of countries and has become one of the tools of strategic coercion. And we in Asia Pacific will have to be very careful because we may face denial of strategic minerals, we may get denial of advanced chips or semiconductors, and we'll have to share this if we are to come. AI autonomy or AI sovereignty has now become the key word. Own your own intelligence is important. Next, I come to faster change and less warning. I would like to bring to your attention that things are moving so rapidly that the warning time to react to strategic, to geopolitical decisions is very little. Moment a decision is taken geopolitically in any part of the world, its effects and shocks are felt immediately. Otherwise, it should take many decades for geopolitics to unfold. Today, it happens straight away. When the oil prices jump up and down, when energy gets denied, when roots get, it's going to be very difficult. Another area of concern is that the maritime routes of Asia Pacific, the states of Malacca or the Hormuz and all, are no longer going to be the priority of the Western powers if they have got the full energy security in that area. And therefore, we could feel that this area could not be protected. So the contest in the South China Sea and Asia Pacific will get more and more prolonged. I can go on and on. I like to talk about climate change once to tell you all you're aware of it. We as a region of the seas are affected by climate change most dramatically, and therefore we've got to take a lot of steps to ensure climate change does not affect our economy. On the other hand, the peace accord, the Paris Accord is being trivialized, and that people are moving from that, and that's all multilateral organizations are getting weaker. So, in the end, I would like to say that Asia Pacific as a region, which is the powerhouse of the world, it was supposed to be this century of Asia. It may longer be the century of Asia in the true sense, but I still feel Asia Pacific will be a very dominant and very important part of the world. It will be the focus of lots of things happening here. And with the resilience that we have shown in the past, I think it's an area of sustained growth. But we'll have to work on resilience and preparedness and be ready to deal with the consequences of geopolitics taking place across the world. Unless we are aware of them, our region may falter a bit. Overall, I feel in the coming year, we can see a lot of contest taking place, a lot of geopolitical turmoil taking place, but yet a period of growth of 3 to 4% taking place in Asia Pacific, resilience being built up, and all the things being brought together. With that, I thank you very much for paying attention and say once again that Asia Pacific is a very, very vibrant and dynamic region and needs to be continue to do so if we are to prosper in the region. And the world depends upon the growth in this region for futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, General Sharma. That was indeed brilliant. It is always an honor to hear you speak. You made global geopolitics sound easy while delving us into deeper thoughts. I also request you to have a look at the Q&A box. We can see queries for you already starting to pour in. You can address them in the box itself while we proceed with the event. With that, we move on, and I can assure you that there is a lot of more interesting stuff to come. The first panel discussion of the day is on APAC Risk Outlook 2026, promised to be energy packed just like Sushil Pradhan. Many of you know him already. Over to you, Mr. Pradhan.
Wish you all a very good morning. And we had a scintillating opening keynote speech by Jan Sharma, which sets the tone for our discussion today. And as was mentioned today, the topic for our panel discussion is the risk outlook in the present year, 2026, for the Asia Pacific region. But before we move on to the discussion, I'd like to quickly introduce my eminent panelists to me. And I'll request all my panelists, you are all here on screen, please turn on your cameras so that the audience can see you as well. Okay, so let me start in no particular sequence. I have Sanjay Sharma here with me, who's the regional director for AbbVie based in Singapore. He's got over 25 years of experience in corporate security. And before joining AbbVie, he was the associate director and regional security manager at MSD, and also was the vice president and regional head of fraud risk at HSBC. And he was in Deutsche Bank as assistant vice president of corporate security and business continuity. And prior to that, he held leadership roles in Lehman Brothers, DHL Express, and the Central Bureau of Investigation in India. So, as you can see, a checkered career and a very wide range of experience. Hi, Sanjay. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here with us this morning or this afternoon. Next, we have Nikita. Nikita Kohli Manaktala is the AVP for Geopolitical and Security Intelligence for the APAC region for Barclays. And before joining Barclays, she was the Marketplace Security Specialist for APAC region at Uber. And before that, of course, she was part of our team at MitKat Advisory, initially as a geopolitical intelligence analyst and then as a senior analyst. And earlier in her career, she was also a researcher at the Center for Law and Warfare Studies of India and a consultant at Oxfam India. So, welcome, Nikita. Thanks for joining us. Okay. We have with us today also Karan Chawla, who's the head of BCM and security audits for VFS Global. So Karan has over 18 years of experience, and in addition to his current position, he also serves as an advisor at Mythos Labs, where he provides strategic guidance on product development and growth strategy for their AI-powered fraud prevention platform, Sago. Karan, this sounds really interesting. I'm going to take you up on this separately and figure out what is it exactly that you do. Earlier in his career, Karan worked at Meta, where he led the strategic response policy across Asia Pacific and India. And Karan has also had significant positions at RBS, Morgan Stanley, Fidelity Investments, and Fidelity International. So thanks, Karan, for joining us, and a very good afternoon to you. Then I have Vagisha with us. So Vagisha is the Senior Regional Security Manager for the Asia Pacific region at LinkedIn. And in her earlier career, she also contributed to Bauer Group Asia as an analyst. She's also served as an intelligence specialist at Pinkerton, where she worked with the Global Risk Group's Asia Pacific Regional Information Center. Vagisha's expertise also extends to media and communications, having worked as a monitoring journalist for Asia Pacific at BBC Monitoring, and additionally, she was a political analyst at TAC Economics. Hi, Vagisha. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And the last but not the least of the panelists we have is Danny Chan, who's the Global Security Officer for Asia Pacific region for MasterCard. After his stint as a captain with the Singapore Special Forces, Danny proceeded to develop, advise, and train numerous law enforcement agencies and military tactical units around the world with Britam Defense. With Olive Group, then he went on to become the Director of Global Risk Assessments at World Aware International, and thereafter the Regional Director for Global Risk Management for Marriott International. Danny is based in Singapore as well and currently sits on the Advisory Council of Harvard Business Review, is a Senior Regional Vice President of the region of ACIS International for Asia Pacific, and is a board member of the Certified Counterterrorism Professional Board. So thanks for joining us, Danny. Good afternoon to you. And so, as you could see from the very brief introductions that I gave you to the panelists, there is such a wide range of experience, expertise, and knowledge about the Asia Pacific region held with all these panelists. So I'm going to pick their brains and get on to discussing the Asia Pacific risk outlook. So as General Sharma also mentioned that, Asia Pacific is the growth engine of the world, and yet it remains to be a risk engine as well. The countries are becoming more and more interconnected, yet more and more volatile and more contested for resources, labor, and knowledge. So, at the very outset, Danny, to set the stage at a very macro level, uh, could you also tell us that this is, as Janet Sharma said, that we cannot remain isolated from what's happening in the world and say that, okay, Asia Pacific, we are a world apart. So, which are the external geopolitical or economic developments outside Asia which you think will most reshape the region's risk landscape over the next 2 to 3 years, and why so?
All right, so Shu, so many years ago, right, I was in the military and we were on this navigation exercise where we had to go from point A to point B to point C. And I was partnered with this individual who really wanted to navigate, right? So I was very happy to just hang back and follow. So I was walking for hours and hours and hours. And all of a sudden, right, I grabbed him on the shoulder because we were literally standing at the edge of a cliff. He looked at the compass, he looked at the map, he turned around, looked at me, right? And he looked at the compass, he turned around and looked at me. And did you know what he said? He said that the land was wrong, right? Not that the map was wrong, but the land was wrong, right? And thank you, Sushu and MitKat for invitation to speak today. Because to answer your question, right, I think we are in this week of global dislocation, right? That is caused by the pandemic, the conflicts we have in Eastern Europe, Middle East, Iran, Greenland, the rising cost of living, risk of new technology, tariffs, and generally this intensification of contest between great powers, right? So what do we as middle powers or small powers do? And I feel that we are amid this poly crisis, right, which is a term that is coined back in the 1990s by French social scientists, right, Edgar and Anne, and they are describing this interwoven and overlapping crisis that face humanity, right? So what that says is that none of us are facing one crisis at one time, right? We're all managing multiple crises at one time. But besides poly crisis, right, I feel that we are in a world of what we call perma crisis or permanent crisis, right? But what's more important for us, I feel that in of this crisis, right, lays an opportunity, right? And as the general pointed out, right, we don't necessarily have to chase the headlines. And please understand there's way too many headlines for us to chase. At the end of the day, what we need to do is to understand the impact, the business impact, right? Yes, it's a really big fire. Wow, there's a really big earthquake and a huge data breach. But if it doesn't impact your people or your business, should we be paying attention to it? Because from my elevation, right, what I'm seeing is there's no shortage of data or headlines. On the contrary, we are simply overwhelmed by it. There's information overload, work fatigue that hangs all over us. So being resilient today is probably going to be more important, right? Because none of the indicators that we are monitoring suggest that things are going to get better or safer anytime soon. And the way I define being resilient today is for us to learn to be comfortable in an uncomfortable environment. Because it doesn't matter what our job scope is, it does not matter who we work for, things are just going to will continue to get worse. And that's how I really appreciate platforms like this, right? Where, quite frankly, it's very important for us to come together to build those sort of like partnerships and friendships, right? Which has, you know, proven really critical in times of conflict. But partnership like this needs to be built in terms of peace, like today. So it's important for us to come together to share what's top of mind, right? So that all of us can better calibrate our understanding of what's happening, but more importantly, right, to also calibrate our responses to different incidents and situation. I know that we're all busy, right? But it's extremely important for us to deliberately carve out this time, right? Even just for that 4 or 5 hours out of the whole year to catch up with our peers, our friends, and our ecosystem, right? And I believe that if we're able to tap onto this collective ability, to enhance our perspective, it can really inform decision making and unleash the sort of like creativity and spark innovative thinking that we'll not be able to do in our own silo, right? I apologize, it's a long question to a short answer, Sushil, but back to you, sir.
Thank you so much. And I like your point about not necessarily chasing all the headlines, because we need to only focus on those headlines which matter to us as people managing the risks for our respective businesses. And I think from a slightly higher level, let's come down to the actually practical nuances of business risks. So, Taking up from where Danny left off, Vagisha, could you sort of give us your perspective on how should companies operating in the Asia Pacific translate today's global geopolitical and economic uncertainty into concrete changes into their risk planning and investment decisions?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So, I mean, to re-emphasize what General Sharma and Danny were sharing, that our current macroeconomic environment, both economic and geopolitical, I mean, we are operating not like in a temporary headwind situation. It is our operating environment, and for companies as well. I mean, I agree with Danny that as risk planners within our own companies and our decision making, we shouldn't be chasing headlines. But I do believe definitely that companies have to look at bunch of scenarios rather than focusing only on one scenario to identify how their investment planning should look like within a country or within a region. And I mean, we can just look at how 2026 started, with the chaos that's happening on the other side of the world. It doesn't mean that it has no geopolitical or geographical impact on Asia Pac. Hence, I do believe that 100% that risk planning and resilience building and embedding that in the investment decision making for companies should be the primary factor for them to even operate within our Asia Pac as well. I do think that companies in Asia Pac have to ensure that they are actually adding the geopolitical factor as looking it as like a financial variable rather than just as a qualitative aspect that's just sitting on the sideline. It is the primary and sort of like factor that's driving investment decisions for lots of companies here in Asia, especially. And like for example, I think like from what I observe is that based on all my experience as a person who was working with the macroeconomic companies and looking at from a political and a macroeconomic observer, we used to advise and suggest companies here in Asia Pac that ensure that you are working with multiple scenarios and multiple futures and not just limit your investment options only to one country or one sub-region within Asia Pac because there is so much uneven growth. We are way more susceptible to sanctions and trade restrictions and fragmentation of institution and political instability. It would make sense that companies are able to diversify their supply chains, their investment options. They're able to phase out how much they're going to actually allocate capital in a given country. All these things are certain ways in which companies can offset these kind of geopolitical disorder that is affecting macroeconomic environment within our various countries within Asia Pac. And absolutely, the world order is not going to be the most the way it is going on and the way it is divided between bipolar or multipolar world order. At the end of the day, we know that there are two massive powers operating both in the West and the East, and how middle powers are going to be looked at, how we are going to be, how companies should be geographically and geopolitically diversifying their investment. That matters a lot. That is going to make their companies much more resilient in terms of their business performance. So that would be my take, how companies could ensure that they are able to build resilience in their investment decision making and risk planning as part of their executive level decision making driver, rather than just keeping it as like a good to have or scenario situation in their investment planning.
Absolutely. Thank
Back
you
to
so
you,
much.
Sashi.
And yeah, thank you. And I like the point about diversifying their investment decisions as well as the risk planning across geographies and across geopolitics. So I think that's a important takeaway because with so many shifting lines in the sand today, one really doesn't know who's aligning with that. And as in the keynote address, we heard a very interesting terminology by Jan Sharma. So in the Asia Pacific region, we are moving away from cooperation and coordination to competition within the region. At the same time, we have these multiple alliances and groupings like Quad, AUKUS, ASEAN, BRICS, which are changing the strategic balance within the Asia Pacific region. So, Nikita, just to get your opinion on how do you see new fault lines emerging within these groupings, or with the overbearing presence of these groupings, and does it sort of project a united uh, Asia Pacific region to the rest of the world, or are there stress lines, fracture lines internally which are absolutely irreconcilable? So over to you, Nikita.
All right. And thank you, Karan Pradhan. That was a really great question. And thank you for having us over here. So you mentioned four groups, right? The Quad, the AUKUS, ASEAN, and BRICS. If you look at it, the two of them which are more military focused, which is Quad and AUKUS, are the ones which have the US. And the one which are more economics focused, that's ASEAN and BRICS, are the ones that don't have the US, right? So they have like various different groupings. What we're going to see right now in 2026, like just focusing on the year that we're starting out, the US has proven to be like not the most reliable partner so far, right? This year, with a lot of uncertainties, and the decision, perhaps rightly by the American standard, to put America first, and they will not be focusing so much on the corporations and the groups that they are part of, and they're pulling back from that. They've already pulled back from about 66 international organizations, not being so fond of others, and in fact, in even removing certain troops from the NATO groups, right, and NATO positionings. So in 2026, I think we are going to see a bit more focus on the economic groups. I think that those are the ones that are going to show a lot of cohesiveness. As the world economy and the global political, socioeconomic, all of the changes that are happening, if because of the international cohesiveness or the global value chain that we have been part of since roughly like 2 3 decades now. So since then, these or the ASEAN and the BRICS groups are going to be a lot more powerful and a lot more impactful. And I think that out of these two, BRICS is one that I'm going to watch a lot more closely for two reasons. The first is BRICS Pay, which is fantastic. So they have a different a monetizing system which is coming up supposedly, which is going to be an alternative to the BRICS to the SWIFT system, the SWIFT system of clearing payments. The minute that happens, US loses control over the sanctions regime. Where can people send their money? Where can they trade? Who can they talk to? That entirely goes. And we already know it's BRICS plus right now, right? So we have about a roughly a group of 51 countries. If they decide that, well, you know what, the international sanctions set by the US don't matter anymore, and we're going to look at our own system, that's going to be major. So I'm looking at what they do with this. Second is the gold-backed currency that they're planning to launch. So they have already shown us, the different prototypes that they're launching with China specifically and also Russia moving a lot of the gold out from the reserves at London and the US and concentrating with themselves. And we're seeing the price of gold rise. If we do manage to move away from petrodollar, even for these groups internally, that's going to be a major shift and a loss of power to the international system that we see. So I think that there's a lot more to be said for the BRICS based system, and I think that that is a bigger shift that we aren't monitoring as much. Though the gold backed currency, of course, is there, but I think that with all these groups already talking and trading between themselves, in local currencies, that's not going to be as impactful. But I think this is what we need to watch out for. The fourth lines will be who can talk to whom, who can trade with whom, and who gets to control whether I get to talk to a neighbor or not. I think that's what we're going to look at.
Thank you, Nikita. Very good perspectives, and I really like the understanding of how the region is trying to move away from a SWIFT-based money transfer system, and we are seeing signs of gold-backed economies and currencies coming back. So really, doesn't know how it's going to come out in the near future. But from a more functional and business perspective, Sanjay, how does this, how do these fracture lines or how do these differences translate into our dependency on supply chains, diversification of supply chains, and market access? So, your thoughts, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Sushil. So let me start by thanking Mitesh from your Singapore office for inviting me to join this discussion, and grateful to Pawan for his support and partnership throughout all these years. Can't recall how many years have gone by. But many rating agencies, like MitKat, and there are other companies, they do risk ratings and with different metrics and criteria. But security, business resilience, and supply chain always remain on the top. You can add digital disruptions, regulatory, geopolitical, etc. But the supply chain always remains on the top. So the short answer to your question is yes. We are moving towards a more fragmented Asia Pacific, like it's already been said. But what I see is it's not a clear divide. So this fragmentation, so my thought is this fragmentation is not on economic efficiency. So the fragmentation of supply chains that I'm talking about is not really on economic efficiency. And so this economic efficiency is being traded for political and, even sometimes operational resilience. So it's instead of Asia Pacific, being one economic hub is now a patchwork of mini ecosystems and, like it's been already been said, competing nations. So this fragmentation that you talk about is not about borders, it's about alignment. You know, how countries align, like Nikita also mentioned, how countries speak to each other and how they align. So there are various ecosystems, like the China-centric ecosystem, which focuses on Central Asia and domestic circulation. Then Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, they have a fence around, advanced chips manufacturing. Vietnam, Indonesia, even India are positioning themselves as an alternate to China for Western markets. So these fragmentations and these blocks are there. But for supply chains, for example, South China Sea is a big choke point. Any localized friction, such as disputes between China and Philippines will threaten this supply chain. Also, APAC, within APAC, the nations are competing with each other to dominate, the resource supply chains, as General Sharma had spoken about resource nationalism, to where countries, limit exports. So, for example, recently we saw Indonesia limit exports of nickel. Malaysia has done the same for rare earth. So it's like a, very competing nationalism. We have a very heavy dependence on Middle Eastern oil, especially Southeast Asia, almost 60%. So this makes the region susceptible to external pressures a lot. And, so companies have to navigate this tariff goods, that are being and reroute through third-party hubs. So, that Mexico, Vietnam have become essential bridge countries now to move goods around for supply chains. So, in summary, I think all these things are making supply chains longer and more expensive and more complex for the companies. And, market access is no longer a one size fit all strategy. It has to be, fragmented and looked at different pieces separately. So those are my thoughts. Back to you.
Thank you, Sanjay. A really insightful aspect which you brought out about supply chains not necessarily being dictated by proximity or geography, but more by resilience and longer and expensive, yet more reliant. So I think that is a very important definition in today's business perspective, where companies, especially in terms of sourcing and supply chains, are willing to go the more expensive route, the more complicated route, on the assumption that that's a more resilient route. So great perspective. Thank you so much. And I'm now going to move away from these risks to very specific locations or places where we have a potential for conflict within the region itself. So these conflicts are driven by various factors. They could be religious, they could be historical, geographical, and ethnic. So, Karan, just wanted to pick your brains on which are these potential flashpoints in Asia Pacific that worry you the most today, and how should companies be looking or watching out for the early warning signals from the conflict point of view?
Thank you, Sushil. First of all, my gratitude for inviting me over here to share my thought process on some of these things. As I'm going to talk about my perspective, again, just a small disclaimer. Everything what I say is in my personal capacity. Nothing is from my employer point of view. So I just want to put that disclaimer in the beginning. You know, as I see from my lens, I put these flashpoints in the two buckets. One is our standard flashpoints, which we all are aware of it. The geopolitical ones, the Taiwan Strait, which is going to be a critical year for us. Like President has said that it's going to be a critical one for the sovereignty of that nation as such. While full-scale invasion is very, very low probability event, but risk of the gray zone, where things get tested out by the different countries, or such as a blockage or military accident, is pretty high. I think other than is the South China Sea. I think we talked about previous panelists talked about the South China Sea. I think the Philippines picking up the chair of the ASEAN over here, and Manila Beijing friction has intensified with the U.S. national security focus also shifting around. So I think that's something we need to keep an eye on that. And obviously, one red line for me is the permanent stationing of the missile batteries on the artificial islands of the physical removal of a BRP, Sierra Madre over there. So I think that one we need to look into that. Korean Peninsula has always be there. It's all a slow growing thing. When it's going to explode, it's anyone's guess. But beyond these standard flashpoints, which you all are aware of it, I think my biggest worry is the intersection of societal fractures, digital amplifications, lack of trust in the government institutions, which has resulted in quite a few of the protests in our neighborhoods in the last few years. So I would like to kind of see through in the horizon that are there any such countries where I would say that early warnings could be there's a high youth unemployment, and there's a concept called NEET, which is called youth not in training, not in education, and which is basically all over the social media as such. So are there any such indicators as such? So I think if I look at that perspective and how these things are amplified, some of the indicators are meme to street ratio. Like earlier grievance used to take years to years to build up and get into mobilizations. Now I was going through a recent study that this has dropped from weeks to under 4 hours in some parts of APAC. And we have seen that what's happening in Iran, we have saw in Bangladesh and Nepal, and previously in Sri Lanka as well. So I think that's something, all that discontent which is growing in the society and the loss of trust in the government institutions, and not having enough on the plate is going to cause a lot of issues in societies down the road as well. Also, the VPN penetration strike. So as the citizens become a lot more digitally literate on some of these things, they know how to bypass the system. So they will still be able to use a lot of digital ecosystem to mobilize and pass on the messages as such. That's something which we need to be taking into consideration as well. So I think I would say that some of the economic signals I see is the youth employment, unemployment, food inflation spikes. I see digital signals, sentiment polarity in the country, virality accelerations, grievance hashtags, how soon they come, what's the velocity of that, disinformation clusters. And I'm going to talk about this in the panel as well. And the governance signals, lack of institutions, the key thing over here. So if I look at this perspective, I think the higher risk environments in APAC, I would include Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar. That list will also include at some point Thailand, Philippines, and Nepal as well. It's all mix of young population, unemployment, grievances, lack of trust in the government institutions, and interconnected society. So I think that's something we need to be really careful about these things. So I think I would say the modern early warning system is 50% economic and 50% digital, and it's going to be fast, socially driven, and digitally amplified. And we really need to look for these signals if we need to know that what's going to happen in the next 1 year. I'll just take a pause over here.
Thank you so much, Karan. Really good. And, I was expecting not just uh, geographical hotspots of conflict, but you rightly brought out social, educational, and even the technological hotspots of conflict. So I've got a little bit of a homework for the audience to do. So, guys, on the, chat box, please type in what you feel is the most critical, or what is the most likely conflict to break out in the Asia Pacific region in the coming year. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to shift focus back to Nikita. So, Nikita, Karan mentioned lots of potential conflict zones. If a conflict were to actually break out in any of these zones, what do you think would be the wider business impact in terms of, let's say, even the second order and third order impacts which businesses should be prepared for?
Great question. And I'll let's just stick to the three regions or zones that Karan mentioned, right? So we have the South China Sea, we have the Taiwan Strait, and the Korean Peninsula. I'll add one more, which is the Yellow Sea, which is where China and South Korea are now battling each other, so to say. So if we look at these zones as well as the issues of unemployment and the Gen Z and the way that they're looking. So if we look at those two, the non-geographical locations. Now, if you put them in second and third order, so it's just for the information of anyone who is not entirely aware, first order impact is what's the immediate impact to that location and to businesses if they're operating in that region. Like, will they need to stop? Will they be able to operate and continue operating? What are the mechanisms that they require? Second order are the hidden costs or the chain reactions that trigger a bit later down the line, perhaps even towards the end of the conflict or middle of the conflict, towards even afterwards. And third order impacts are those that we look at the long term systematic consequences, such as cultural polarization, talent loss, and the long term things that keep happening even, say, a decade after a conflict has ended. Now, with that background, if we let me just focus on the second order first. We live in a global value chain. I think Sanjay's talked about it, Karan's talked about it, Isha's talked about it. We have lived, and we have the entirety of our life, at least for me, like since the 1990s, has been in a global value chain. Some things come from one place, the ideation comes from another, design from another country, it gets put together in one. We are getting stuff from across the world. We have lived, or at least all of us have lived, a large part of our professional lives in this global value chain. So when these conflicts erupt, the first thing that we're going to see as a second order impact is the significant disruption to the global value chain. But now that we have seen certain major disruptions, we have seen when, say, with the Nancy Pelosi visit, when China really disrupted the region and ships could not pass through, right? That was a major disruption. We have seen COVID. Now we have alternates now. So does that really matter? Now, value chains still become important because what happens in those local regions, we are not able to move ahead from that. So, a third thing, the third order impact that we talk about is where these topical issues come in. What we call about unemployment, the cliques that are being made, like almost as if in high school. That, hey, we're going to talk to these two. We're not going to talk to this person. If you talk, you're out of the group. It's very high schoolish. Let's just say, but this fractionalization of groups is something that we are going to see. So suppose if there is something that happens in the Yellow Sea or in the Taiwan Strait, what happens? Just to take Taiwan Strait, I think everyone on this call would be at least have spent at least a few months, if not years, working exclusively on the Taiwan Strait. So when that happens, what happens to the Japan-China trade? We saw that when there was a slight confusion later last year, the amount of the tourist disruptions that happened between China and Japan led to significant disruption of local economies. We are that integrated. It led to a significant decline for food availability because money was not there. What about the other kinds of hotels that are there? What about a lot of other economies? It's not just hey, our stuff comes from there. We need the chips that come from there. We need the cars that come from there. We need the laptops and the tech that comes from different parts of the world. It is about how do the people survive. And I think that one of the last things that Karan mentioned, which is the Gen Z disillusionment, if I put it at that, that's going to be the main area. Because if, historically speaking, if we do not look at that becoming a significant issue with 2026, 27, and later, Gen Z is now entering the workforce. It's been a couple of years. If we are unable to accompany and customize ourselves to those changes, it's going to get very difficult. And that's not just in workplaces, it's going to be in all of these conflict zones. We have seen already so many protests that are happening in Indonesia, in Nepal, in Bangladesh. If the groups are not able to come together, then these are not people who are going to sit back down. We have seen these disruptions last in 1979, 1980, where globally this level of disruption happened and the entire global system had to shift to accommodate the new people, the new thought processes, the new way of doing work. I think that is something we really need to work on and see. And hey, how soon can we shift this? As Danny mentioned right at the beginning, these protests happen. How do they impact us? They impact us by value chains. They impact us by impacting the society that we operate in. We don't operate as singular entities out there. We work with the people of that country who are traveling to that country. We are there. So how do we work with everyone together?
Thank you, Nikita, and thanks for educating us about this third order impact, which is essentially the dependence on various kinds of resources or kinds of technologies that will affect us, and which brings me to discuss the drivers of conflict or drivers of let's say unrest in the region, which could be energy, technology, critical minerals. So, Vagisha, just to get your opinion on amongst these various kinds of drivers of tension, including, of course, like everyone has been talking about the social and political unrest with the youth. Which of these do you see as the most structurally destabilizing force in the region over the next, I won't say decade, I think that's too far to look at, but in the next couple of years, if possible?
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I may share an unpopular opinion with my panelists here, but I mean, if we look at structurally destabilizing force, I think it implies that it is not cyclical. It's beyond cyclical. It's going to be systemic. It's going to persist beyond any other factor that's going to come in. So it's going to stay for longer period of time, and not just few years, 100% for decades. And the reason why I said I may have an unpopular opinion is because while as companies, for us, these social political unrest, in a given country or a geography, sub-region of a geography may impact our business investments and such. But if we look at from a regional destabilizing force standpoint, I do believe that social and political unrest are still can be considered cyclical because of certain factors that are contained within a domestic situation. I do see that energy security, for example, it is a concern for almost every country, but then because it has been visible to most countries, governments, companies, we, for quite some time, I would say for more than 2-3 decades, since, or maybe going back to 1970s when the or 1980s and 90s when the Arab War and the Iran-Iraq War had started, and the destabilizing force around oil and fuel and energy had actually catapulted in the global world order. We are aware about that aspect, and so companies have and countries have embedded that aspect and factor into their macroeconomic decision making, investment decision making. So for me, coming from a working for a tech company and whatever I've observed in past few years, literally companies working at the cutting edge of technology on quantum computing, space tech, semiconductors and everything, I personally do see that competition will be the most destabilizing force, not just within Asia Pac, but globally as such. That is the thing that is going to actually shift these, alignments across the world 100%. I think one of our panelists did share that, how technology can be weaponized to deny access to certain states. So it can be used in multiple ways. So for me, that is my bottom line, how it's going to actually create these more fragmented institutions, so to say. It can also have that zero-sum effect within a region and globally as well. And I see the critical or the rare earth minerals and such more like a support system to elevate the risk that is created from the technology competition. So it's like a derivative. And from there, energy security and political and social unrest, these becomes sort of like derivative further to the energy security, further to the rare earth sort of situation. But in my understanding and opinion, and whatever I've observed so far, and what I'm foreseeing is that we are going to, we are heading towards, and we are actually already in the midst of this situation where technology has become the most destabilizing force.
Thank
And
you.
I can go on, but I'll
Oh, thank you. It's a
pass it
very
on.
interesting perspective you've given us, Vagisha. Thank you. And you know how one kind of driver depends on the other, and one is a derivative of the other. So thank you. Excellent insights on that. And also thank you for leading me towards the next phase of my discussion, which I was anyways going to move towards. And that is on the discussion of technology as a destabilizer or a risk in the region, where we are seeing a huge influx of artificial intelligence, social media influence, misinformation, disinformation. So, Danny, how do you think all these changes are changing the speed of and the scale of unpredictability of various crises in the Asia Pacific region?
Yeah, thanks, Sushu. That's a really good question, right? So to me, AI is magical, right? But it's not magic. And if ungoverned, it becomes black magic. But if we take a step back, right? AI by itself is not new, right? It's been with us for decades. The only part that is new is the generative, the large language part. And it's been probably 2 years, around there when OpenAI, followed by, you know, other products that actually came onto the market, right? But I believe it's this year and this year onwards where the generative AI bit will make a more meaningful contribution to our professional work lives, right? Because so far, I think most of us has been using Gen AI, right? Doesn't matter what tool it is, from Copilot to Perplexity to Gemini, to generate ideas, to write a document, to develop SOP, right? But how many of us know properly how to write a prompt, right? How many of us can articulate what are the five big buckets of a prompt that you would need to fit into, right? And going back to technology, I feel that even today, right, my refrigerator is connected to the internet, right? The attack surface that we have to collectively protect gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And with the advent of Gen AI, right? Let me just throw some numbers out there. Phishing, right? Arguably, phishing is probably one of the easiest way for the bad threat actors to enter our system. So before Gen I will not be able to write a a Hindi phishing email, right? Because I don't speak Hindi. But today, everything changes. I can write a very localized spear phishing email in Hindi, in Japanese, in Italian, in any language I want. And because of this proliferation, the number of phishing email has actually increased 1025%. But more importantly, right, two-thirds, right, two-thirds of CEO of Fortune 500 companies were specifically spearfish. But if you look at the response data of companies like, Mandiant and CrowdStrike, right? Of all those successful phishing emails, only between 10 to 20% was generated from a large language model, right? So yes, it's a threat, but it's not as a profound threat as it is today. And if you look at most malware or ransomware that's been deployed, right? None of those are written today by a large language model. But you have to just look at the pace of change, right? If you look at OpenAI, for example, they push out between 4 to 5 major upgrades a year, and they add between 8 to 9 tools a year. So very soon, perhaps just around the corner, there could be a large language model that's able to write a malware, right, or ransomware good enough to be deployed in our operating environment. And I've also not heard anyone talk about quantum computing, right? Because when PQC comes along, everything that we hold dear, right, today is going to be on some sort of a computer system, right? Our IP, for example, our payroll data, our employee data, none of them will be protected, right? And speaking of misinformation, disinformation, right? I'll just pick one, right? And that's like one of my pet peeves. There's been a lot of narrative, a lot of vendors out there talking about how you can harvest now, right, and decrypt later. And what that simply says is that, okay, today I will just go out and collect a lot of encrypted data, right? So I have like terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data. And one day down the road, when quantum computing is available, right, then I'll go use it. But do you know why that is absolutely not true? Okay. First and foremost, you must understand, right? If all your data is encrypted, you can't even see the file name, right? Everything is just like black, right? So you take a file, you randomly pick a file, right? And you run it through your quantum computing. The question is, do you know, based on today's utility cost, how much does it cost to run a sub-second worth of quantum computing? It's actually 64,000 US dollars, right? So you pick a file, you spend 64,000 US decrypting, and do you know what that is? That was Danny's email to Sushil arranging for dinner, right? And that's 10 years ago. Is that helpful? I don't know. Probably not, right? And you also have to understand the actual cost of building a quantum computer, right? Today it's about 100 million US dollars, right? I'm probably not as wealthy as Sushi, but I don't have $100 million in my pocket lying around to build a quantum computing, right?
Right. Thank
And
you.
one last thing before I go, and the most important thing is that when quantum computer is available, right? No one is going to announce it. It could be here today already, right? Because that will be the ultimate secret weapon to be able to look into any portal, behind any firewall, and any database you want. Would you want to tell anyone else that you have it? Probably not. All right, so shoot, back to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. And thanks for highlighting a very important aspect of quantum computing and decryption of stolen data. I think the third panel where Pawan is going to be chairing or moderating is going to talk a little bit about this for sure, because that's one of the conversations that needs to be had. But also, thanks for also putting away that bogeyman of quantum computing. It's the way you explained it, the economic viability of using it and what will it actually give you in return is something which we need to think about, and not just keep worrying about something that's going to come in the future. But coming to more practical applications and resilience from misinformation campaigns, deepfake AI, I'm going to put this question to both Sanjay and Karan, is how businesses are going to be resilient towards this. And just quick 2 minutes from each of you. We'll go with Karan first, please.
Thanks, Ashil. I think we can't really avoid AI. Like it's part of the life right now. And all these things, disinformation campaigns, social media misinformation, I think they'll be part of the life. They've been always been a part of life, right from the age old, but I think the velocity has increased and intensification has increased over here. Something which probably would have taken weeks to do it will probably happen in the minutes as such. So I think as a lot of firms have invested in the cyber security, I think the firms need to start investing in information risk monitoring as well. Real-time tracking of narrative risk, deepfake signals, abnormal sentimental patterns as well. And I think looking at those, and we need to understand that how we can move fast. Uh, Days are over when we can take probably a few hours or more to kind of decide whether to escalate or not, but it's to you just need to have the escalation frameworks very much in the place to go to the right teams, go to the right tech platforms to get the bad things down if they can be, or go to all the redressal mechanisms. So we need to SOC for reputation and trust in the place, like we have it for the other geopolitical incidents right now. So that becomes a key thing now in all the companies. I think this risk becomes a lot more dangerous when no one owns the decision. So we need to have clear internal playbooks in the place. Who decides, who escalates, who communicates, and who engages platforms on this thing. Sometimes engaging in platforms is very ambiguous as well. A lot of platforms do give us the tools to monitor what happens on these. I can talk about the different tech platforms, and companies have got brand risk management tools over there, but they're not very well known to the market as such. I think what important is to start engaging with these tech platforms to some of these brand reputation things happening over this to be removed, because a lot of them really are in violation of the community standards, and that can be done pretty easily as such. So I think it's the damage used to happen in the weeks and happen in hours. So I think this is because of organization confusion and lack of understanding how this operates. So I'll just take a pause and give it to Sanjay on this.
Yeah, thank you, Karan. Good that you highlighted this compression of time in terms of development and actualization of the risk, and versus how quick is our response going to be to that. Yeah, Sanjay, your thoughts on the same issue.
Yeah, so Sushil, I mean, it sounds like a technically inclined question to me, but from a realistic perspective in companies, I think from my point of view, it's a collaboration between security, business technology, IT security, legal, and HR within a company. I agree with Karan that companies cannot eliminate AI-driven threats, but they can reduce impact, detect faster, recover faster. So the companies must shift to resilient structure. So while IT security implements verification protocols, multi-factor authentication, deploy AI defense tools, deepfake detection softwares, digital signatures, Karan has spoken about actively monitoring, scanning social media. Many companies have also developing their own AI tools and prohibit, open AI and all to be used on company work tools. There is a huge amount of resources being spent on developing a cyber incident response. Many companies have this callback rule. So any urgent request by executive must be verified through a approved channels, Teams channels or whatever. So there are different things that companies can do. You also mentioned this on disinformation. So disinformation thrives on absence of information. And so companies can proactively occupy this narrative. And that is why you see there's a huge resources being spent by companies on having a communication department, digital marketing departments, and things like that. So it's a collaboration of all of them. So also in all this that I've said, generally human element is the weakest element. So we do a lot of tabletop simulation exercises, actually involving cyber threats, measuring time to escalation, sending test emails, calls, and all those kinds of things. So those are my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanjay, and for summing it up
Yeah.
so beautifully towards the end. I know we almost run out of time, but I just want to take the last 1 minute to put a quick rapid fire question to all the panelists. And this is, I know we didn't plan this, but I want your spontaneous inputs in just 3 to 4 words each. What do you all think is the one black swan event which could completely destabilize Asia Pacific region in the coming year? So we'll start in no specific order. Karan, your thoughts?
I think, in my opinion, it would be the China-Taiwan conflict. If it happens, that's going to be problematic, catastrophic for the APAC
Vagisha?
and globally.
Vagisha, what about you?
For me, it's the guarding of technology advancement. That would be the one country guarding something that they have developed, and then yeah, that would be my
Denying it
black
to the
swan.
others, maybe denying.
Precisely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Nikita, your thoughts?
Sudden, unexplained death of any major world leader, including, like, say, Trump or someone, but also Xi Jinping or even Kim Jong Un, for that
Great,
matter.
great thoughts. Danny, what
That
about
can
you?
change.
President Trump's next big idea, right? I think he's the ultimate asymmetric weapon. One person, one idea completely changes the world.
Thank you. Great idea. Sanjay, what about you?
Digital disruption, because I think any flashpoint, even Taiwan or any other would ultimately result, if it results in digital disruption, we have no internet or, lines are cut undersea. That's, I think, the major, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. You've been a fantastic panel, and thank you so much for giving us your candid thoughts. I also appreciate the audience responses, but I expected a lot more inputs coming from the audience in the chat box. It's not over yet, guys. Please put in your thoughts about what are the risks in the Asia Pacific region, what is the outlook for the next year, and panelists, there are a couple of questions in the Q&A box. If you would like to answer those, you could just type out the answers there itself. But thank you, Nikita. Thank you, Vagisha. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Karan, for being such a wonderful part of this panel, and look forward to your participation in many more events that we host. So thanks a lot, and over to you, Hayat.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan, and thank you, panelists. Some fascinating hours have gone by, with many more to come. General Sharma decoded what the world will look like in 2026, and Panel 1 built up on those thoughts, featuring very distinguished speakers. It has been an invigorating last couple of hours. Now, continuing the event, who better to take this forward than my senior and mentor, Atya Bhatt, Intelligence Manager for Asia Pacific MitKat Advisory, who will unveil India's industry acknowledged APAC Risk Outlook 2026. After that, we have a presentation of MitKat's proprietary AI driven risk intelligence platform, DataSurfer.ai, which combines technology with human intelligence for risk monitoring by our in house innovator, Abhijit Korde, product manager for MitKat Advisory. Atya and Abhijit, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hayat. Very good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for being part of Mars APAC 2026. I've already had the pleasure of listening and learning from the insights shared by our chairman, General Sharma, and from the first panel. So thank you so much, General and Colonel Pradhan, and our panelists, and super excited for the two panels that will proceed after this. Now, as the intelligence manager for the Asia Pacific region, it is my privilege to share the Asia Pacific Risk Outlook 2026, a report shaped by a year that fundamentally tested the region's resilience all across the entire APAC region. It redefined how risk manifests across the region. And please allow me a couple of seconds and I will take you through the report section by section. Right. The report begins with a very simple premise. 2025 was not a year of isolated shocks, but of compounding risks. Across APAC, geopolitical friction, climate stress, digital vulnerability, and economic uncertainty did not operate independently. They overlapped, reinforced one another, and compressed response times for governments and business organizations alike. Following the chairman's message, which is a very succinct summary of all the risks that are expected to take place in the year 2026, along with how organizations can reconfigure response mechanisms to deal with, at best prevent, at worst mitigate the impact of these incidents. The report first sets the strategic context. 2025 marked a clear inflection point for Asia Pacific. Intensifying great power competition in the Indo-Pacific, persistent friction in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, selective decoupling of supply chains narrowed strategic space across markets. At the same time, national security considerations increasingly shaped trade, technology, data governance, and investment policy, creating a fragmented and compliance heavy operating environment. We then move into the top 5 risks for the APAC region, identified through a combination of likelihood and business impact. Natural disasters expectedly take top spot. The highest regional risk was compounded by floods, heat waves, cyclones, earthquakes, droughts, and many more severe, environmental impacts across the Asia-Pacific region in 2026. Followed very closely by geopolitical hostility, economic slowdown and trade uncertainty, cyber insecurity and digital disruption, and finally extremism risks in selective theaters. The risk rating and country risk sections form the analytical core of the report. Here we assess internal security, political stability, economic stability, natural disasters, and infrastructure resilience across APAC. A key finding from 2025 is divergence. While some economies demonstrated strong macro resilience, operational risk at the subnational level increased, particularly around climate exposure, urban unrest, cyber incidents, and regulatory enforcement. The executive summary sort of ties all of these strands together. 3 cross-cutting forces shaped the year. First, climate risk became a continuous operational challenge rather than a seasonal one. Second, the digital trust agenda accelerated through tighter data protection, cybersecurity, AI governance, and financial crime controls. And third, geopolitics remained a constant backdrop, driving episodic disruption even in otherwise stable markets. Followed by this is the final sections provide country-level deep dives designed not just to describe risk, but to translate it into operational implications for leadership teams in the Asia-Pacific region. In closing, this report is not about predicting crises. It is more about helping decision makers operate confidently in an environment where volatility is the norm. APAC continues to offer immense opportunity, but the cost of underestimating the risk has risen sharply. Resilience, foresight, and adaptability are no longer optional. They are strategic requirements. So in conclusion, the Asia-Pacific risk outlook is an encapsulation of MitKat's motto where if companies do not prepare and prevent, they will repair and repent. Thank you so much, everyone from my team at MitKat and at Data Surfer for making this report not only a reality, but a successful one and a resounding success at that. I would now like to pass the mic on to Abhijit Kode, our product manager, who will demonstrate the ever-evolving capabilities of our external operational risk monitoring platform, datasurfer.ai. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Atreya. Very good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining the Mars 2026. So I'll be taking you through our own risk intelligence solution called Data Surfer. Allow me to share my screen quickly. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Perfect. So our risk intelligence solution is called Data Surfer. It is an AI-powered platform that basically converts the global risk data into an actionable intelligence. The objective is to help enterprises anticipate, prepare for, and respond to all the global threats so that they can protect their people, assets, and business operations. Now, the platform is basically meant to generate the risk intelligence, and how it works is the procedure is the first step. We have integrated more than 20,000 sources across 40 plus languages globally, and it is a continuous process. Mainly, we rely on official government sources, mainstream news media fields, social media X handles, and the weather feeds. So the data is collected from all these various modes. Then the risk events are identified if it is an external operational risk event. And once it is identified, it is structured to form an alert, what we call as an informative alert. Now, because in this industry, the time is of essence, the informative alert is basically generated to provide you the heads up on your mobile and web application so that you know what kind of risk event is happening, where and with what severity. Now, from this informative alert, there are two pathways. The first one is we also have our internal GSOC team with 25 plus analysts who are trained and who have the background of international relations, etc. So now they pick up these the events which are highly critical in nature, and they write an analysis with the description, basically impact on business recommendation, and this detailed analysis report is called as an intelligence alert. And once this intelligence alert is created, it is also dispatched along with the web and mobile application to the email and WhatsApp. And we have a complete customization available so that every user can customize what he or she would like to receive on the email and WhatsApp so that there is no excess sharing of information. Along with the analyst, there is also an option available with the clients that if any informative alert which is of very very intense or very critical in the business operation, they can also request a detailed analysis with one click so that the team will get it converted into an intelligence alert. Parallelly, we have also have the integration of AI to generate the report, which goes beyond the simple description or the present situation. So we have the data since 2019. So along with this, the 5-6 years of data, the AI is trained on the historical and the trend patterns, so that the report generated can also be predictive in nature, which will not only give what is happening, but will also provide you the foresight on what is expected to happen. These reports are currently can be generated in the PDF format from the application. Scope wise, we have 12 defined non-financial operational risk category. So we cover anything that is relevant to any of these risk categories globally. Now I'll quickly jump to the actual live web application. It is a cloud-based application. Every user will have access to the username and login. And we also provide a enterprise level license, and there is no limitation on mapping the number of assets. Now this is the home screen for the data surfer application. Okay, and the data which you see is the for the past 8 hours. Once onboarded, we will take the lat longs of all your assets, and the pins which you see on the map are basically the asset pins which you can monitor from the dashboard. Each pin is reflecting a specific risk exposure from very low to very high based on what kind of risk incidents are taking place in the vicinity of that particular assets. Same assets on the left hand side you can see in the list format. And if I would like to see any particular asset, I can monitor it from here. And if I click, I'll see what kind of risk events are taking place in the in the close proximity of my asset. Now, if I click on any particular event, it will open a description card where the user will be able to see the exact event and a one-liner recommendation, which we call as an informative alert. The time which is required to generate the informative alerts is within 1 to 2 minutes of being reported in the open source. Now, from informative alert, if the detailed analysis is required, then either an analyst will pick it up if it is very, very critical, or you can request analysis from here. Once the analysis is requested, you can view analysis and it will give you the detailed description of the event along with the geofencing abilities to map your asset and see if your asset is getting impacted or not. Now, the alert will basically show, apart from the top level information, business impact, top level recommendation, all the sources from where it is generated. And now on the right hand side, you can see if there is a cyclone or something major which is happening, the user can actually change the impact radius and see if the asset is getting impacted. So I am changing the impact radius, and then I can see if the impact radius increases, my Manila office is actually falling within the impact radius so that the preparation can be done accordingly. The entire report can be downloaded in PDF format, and if there is still any question, there is 24/7 GSOC available, so you can put down your query, and there will be some human analyst who will answer your query, so that you can depend on the human support whenever needed. Okay, so this is how you can track all your mapped asset. On the right hand side, there is a continuous monitoring happening for the proximity of all your mapped asset, which you can monitor from here. And then where there is a requirement of the projection, you can use this data surfer predict. So data surfer predict is basically not only giving you what is currently happening, but it will also give you what kind of risk vectors which are possibly will likely to see the impact, and then it will also provide the scenarios. Now there is a flooding happening right now in Jakarta, So as you can see, there is a high severity score, 4 out of 5. And then based on the historical data, it will also provide you that what will be the duration of window. So there is a flooding happening. So you can see that based on the historical patterns, the next likely duration will be 24 to 72 hours, and it can go up to the next 7 days for poorly residential pockets. Okay. Then what kind of impact that is going to going to be witnessed? So there is, you can see the heavy rain events, and there is a possibility of road and transport disruption. So this is how it will give you the overall overview of the situation, along with the one-liner business recommendation in the executive summary itself. If you go down, you can stay on top of the current updates. So the right now, what is the situation and what is happening, which you can monitor from here. Then there is a risk dimension where the each impact is segregated with the 10 parameters. So with each event, you can see because it is a flooding event, out of 10 vectors, the travel mobility, people safety, and business operations are likely to see the highest impact. And these kind of impacts are also shared on in front of each vector, so that the BCP teams can prepare better. Now, along with this, there is a recommendation section. Now, in the initial report, the recommendations will be like a industry agnostic, but it also has the feature to put your industry so that, or the company name, so that you can customize the recommendations to suit to your industry or specifically to your company. Then it is followed by the impact assessment, so you can know that which kind of roads are experiencing the impact, which are the sensitive areas to avoid, whether there was any historical deaths or injuries in similar incidents in the past, what is the transport disruption, utility damage. Then it also correlates the event with the other events which can also see the impact because of the primary event. So you can see that because of this disruption, there is a possibility of service disruption, maybe power disruption. Demonstrations are planned demonstrations which are also at a risk of traffic points and etc. So basically, it can give you the collateral impact. Now, what could happen? Okay. Now, based on a trend analysis, it will give you the scenario analysis. With scenario one, highest probability that there is it will smoothen out after 24 hours. And what will be the business impact in that case? If there is a moderate escalation in sustained heavy rain showers are there, then the impact will increase. And then what could be the impact? And with the 10% very low probability, but the prolonged heavy rain is there, and there is a major impact on the Jakarta city. And in that case, what the businesses are expected to do. So this is how it will give you the foresight on the operation. Okay, it will also give you the list of all the past events and along with the emergency numbers to monitor. So that's how the harnessing the power of AI can generate you the foresight of any particular event. So this is how the dashboard is prepared. If you go to the menu, it will give you an option to monitor the geography of your subscription. Like live monitoring basically gives you all the risk events happening in that particular geography. Forecast is all the planned events for next 90 days, which is helpful for all the GSOC teams, to plan for the coming week or a coming month. And historical data gives you access to all the archival events for the last 3 years. In the list, in the live monitoring, usually in the command center, map view is used. If the small lean team, which requires a specific area monitoring, then they can use a list view or a event snapshot. Now, in the map view, we are populating all the risk events in your subscribe geography, irrespective of where your asset locations are, so that you can stay on top of anything that is happening in your geography from last 2 years to last 2 hours to last 24 hours. On left hand side, you can see the each alert is tagged with the impact level. Like notification is a low impact, moderate is the warning is a moderate impact, and crucial is a high impact event. That's how you can monitor the geography, and all the filters you can use to navigate through the data. On the right hand side, you can use the same incidents you can see the same incidents in the list format. Each alert card is prepared to give you what the event is about, under which category, where it is taking place, whether there is any impact, and if any of your asset is in the vicinity. And then all the call to action buttons like request analysis, view analysis are same throughout the platform. Now, suppose there is if you want to see the trending event from your particular geography, That also you can see based on what kind of incident is reported the highest. Okay, so the Jakarta event is a good example because it is, the flooding is still going on, and there is a highly impact phase going to be there. Now, in that situation, if any user requires a particular situational updates that you want to monitor it continuously, then there is an option of adding any event to the watch list. Now, basically, adding a watch list is you are informing our internal GSOC team that you are interested in this particular event, and as soon as the situation develops or if there is any change, then you have to get notified. So that's how you can keep track on the live events. You can, basically put a validity date that I want to monitor this flooding event for next 72 hours. Okay, and then you can see it will have an entire timeline at your disposal so that you can stay on top of your situation. And as you can see, the entire screen is completely customizable. So even if you during the day there are only 3, 5, or 10 events which are of the crucial importance to you, you can make your own screen and monitor the events accordingly. Similar to the critical event monitoring, there is a section of risk analytics. Now, using the historical data, anyone can populate the risk analytics for any geography or near their asset. Now, here I have populated for the Philippines as a country. You can see the number of total events and what is the when it peaked. You can also have a quick look at why it peaked and what kind of risk events the country witnessed. The main geographies within the country which reported the highest number of incidents. You can see the concentration risk map. Then you can see the countries witnessing rainfall, earthquake, and volcano related incidents in past 1 month. Okay, you can also see the incidents from one click. You can download it into the Excel format, and then you can see the impact level distribution also. So out of more than 2,281 events, 343 are the crucial events, which you can have access from here. So that's how you can use the historical data. It can be done for individual geography, or you can compare two cities, two countries, or this can be done for your assets also. So if you have one asset in Jakarta, other in Sydney, you can compare these assets to see what kind of risk exposure and what kind of vulnerabilities each asset is experiencing. Moving on to the risk reports and advisories, we also have the GSOC team continuously preparing the different kind of reports. So there are some periodic reports, like every morning you receive a daily risk report, every Friday you receive a weekly report, and then at the end of the month you receive a monthly report as well. Then apart from those, there are advisories. Then if there is a Nipah virus outbreak or anything major, the advisories will be there, and for all the major incidents like the Iran situation or Israel Gaza situation, there will also be special reports available in the PDF format. So with one click, you can have access to all these reports in the PDF format and can be downloaded. And because we also have the internal design team, we can also populate these reports with your branding and with your branding guidelines. Okay, so that's how you can access the risk insight section. City brief is for the travelers with one pager, assessment of any particular city, which gives you the overview of the city, all the major risks, key recommendations for the traveler, which will be along with the helplines. So which is the one pager quarterly updated, which can be helpful for the travel desk of any GSOC team. So lastly, in case of any bespoke reports or customized reports, you can always reach out to the team of analysts using query system. Put down whether it is a customized travel advisory or any specific report that is required, like a pestle report and anything. You can always put down your question. There will always be one dedicated person who will call you, understand your requirement, and they will provide you with the customized solution. So that's the quick overview of Data Surfer application 2025. Okay. And then in 2026, we are also coming up with two major modules. The first one is that what we have done is we have trained our risk data, and then we have created our own agentic AI. We have named it as a SAM AI. So basically, it is an agentic AI trained on Data Surfer's global risk data, and it is created to automate all the workflows for the risk analyst. So currently, what it is required by the analyst to search, authenticate and everything. That time is reduced to hours, if not minutes, and it basically helps you to create all the alerts, advisories, assessment, and it keeps the analyst in control. So it is basically the assistant to any analyst operating in a GSOC center. Now I'll just ask my colleague to just give you a quick, glimpse of SAM AI as a video. So Kunal, can you play a quick video?
Yeah.
Introducing Data Surfer Go Safe, AI-powered travel risk management platform that gives you real-time visibility of your travelers and assets
Kunal,
and
can
helps
you
you
play
act
the
on risks before
SAM
they
AI voice?
escalate. Let's see how it works.
Hi Sam, Rachel is traveling from Mumbai to London on 22nd October. Please add her as a new traveler in the system. Note that Rachel is a VIP.
Understood. Adding Rachel to the system. Please provide her full name, designation, contact details, and other information. Now, let's move to the travel itinerary for the London trip. Please upload a CSV file with the itinerary or enter the details.
Uploading the CSV file, here it is.
Thank you. Rachel's London trip has been added to the system. Would you like the rate-free traveler to explain the overall situation in the city and country?
Yes, please.
Generating. A pre-travel advisor is generated and dispatched.
On 2nd October.
Process scheduled on 22nd October. Rachel and 2 other travelers are to be in London today.
Create an incident alert and dispatch it to the affected travelers.
Generating. Incident alert created and dispatched.
Sam, keep track of this travel since we're the VIP.
Noted.
Press happening in London today. What is the current risk exposure?
Rachel facility to protest some which increases their risk exposure. Want me to generate impact advisory with recommendations to move them to a safer distance.
Yes, create the travel impact advisory.
Generating. Impact advisory creates and dispatched. Risk exposure has been reduced after implementing the recommended measures.
Dad. London today. Right. Send the travel impact advisory to the travelers scheduled to arrive in London tomorrow as well.
Generating. Travel impact advisory created and dispatched.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Kunal. So I think there was some network issue, but I'll just give you the idea that the SAM AI, which is the agentic AI trained on a global risk data, that will be embedded in the current data surfer application. And what you saw is the module which is meant to do the travel risk intelligence. And basically, once the SAM AI is embedded into the system, it will be able to track not only your physical assets but also your dynamic assets, which are basically the business travelers. So once the itinerary is booked or a trip is booked, the AI will be able to identify when the business traveler is going to arrive at a particular location. Based on that, it will provide the intimation to the GSOC team to provide the traveler with the pre-travel advisory to give the heads up. Once that traveler lands onto the in that particular country, the GSOC team will be able to monitor if there is a high risk exposure, if there is any incident happening, if there is a close proximity of any risk event from that particular traveler. Once that is identified, they will be able to generate alerts, advisories, and reports within minutes using the SAM AI, and they will be able to ensure that this communication also happens with the end traveler or maybe if it is all employees in your particular asset location, along with the two-way communication, and that is will be the mass communication tool, which will also be embedded into our system, so that the GSOC team knows that there is a if the employees, or if there are all the people working from there, they are safe or not. So there will be two-way communication that can also be done through the platform itself. So basically, the Data Surfer 2026 version will be a centralized operating system that will ensure that the team can monitor the risk events. It can assess the impact on their business travelers or their assets, and then they can also communicate and respond to all the risk events using the mass communication system, which will be called as a next alert. So that's all from my end. I'll if you need a demo, or you need to book a demo, then there is a link at the chat box, or you can contact my colleague Kunal. And if you have any questions, you can also put it into the Q&A section. So I'll be happy to answer. So back to you, Mitesh. So yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Atreya and Abhijit. To download the Asia Risk Outlook, you can click the link in the chat box. The Outlook will also be emailed to you after the event. For more information on Data Surfer or to book a demo of the tool, please contact my colleague Kunal Solanki. His contact details are available in the chat box. Please feel free to get in touch. We now move on to the second panel discussion of the day. The second panel is being held on trends in intelligence, security, and loss prevention, chaired by a renowned orator who needs no introduction, Mitesh Shah, Regional Director for MitKat Advisory. Over to you, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Ayat. I hope I'm audible, loud and clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second panel discussion of the annual event, what we call as MitKat Annual Risk Symposium, APAC edition. Allow me to welcome all the esteemed panelists. We have Victor Lim from Cummins. We have Fabrice Marty from Danone. We have my good friend Khairul Nizam Abidin. I'm going to call him Kai only, from Zebra Technologies, and we have Jason Ang from Meranti Green Steel. Before I move to the panel, allow me to just put a bit of my insights on what this panel is going to focus upon. So what has happened is, as we look towards the 2026 risk landscape, the challenges are truly multifaceted. We are seeing a shift from react and recover to predict and prevent. Whether it is navigating the geopolitical ripples that happen throughout the year, which are not only affecting supply chains, but also our day-to-day business operations, it is imperative that predictive intelligence is important to stay ahead of ever-evolving threats. And that has been the mandate given to security leaders to think beyond their current job scope. If you're aware, the World Economic Forum had recently announced their top 10 risks. It is available for anybody to download and read, and I would encourage all the members of the audience to read it. The top 10 risks in the short term and long term have been mentioned there, and I'm just going to pick two of them. Geopolitical confrontation has been ranked 1 in the short term, which means in the next 2 years, that is going to impact all our business operations. And in the long term, for the next 10 years, extreme weather events are going to impact most business operations. So what does it tell us? That we are at a critical juncture where all the traditional silos of security have no choice left but to reinnovate themselves, reinvent themselves to stay relevant in today's business times. Today, risk intelligence, corporate security, loss prevention, different sub-verticals within the broader header are no longer independent functions, but are integrated together to provide a shield to any organization's assets, be it people, be it data, be it the reputation of the organization. Now, our panel today brings together seasoned professionals and innovative thinkers to discuss how we can reimagine, reinvent, reinnovate ourselves to perform risk management in today's diverse times. We will explore themes on how risk intelligence now has become a business enabler. We are also going to talk about how data analytics could be used in loss prevention. We are going to touch upon a bit more detail about climate risk, which is slowly but surely becoming an important discussion point in boardrooms. And that will allow the audience to have a very diverse view of how things are going to happen. I would encourage my panelists to on the video and allow me to just give a quick introduction about all the 4 panelists that have joined me to explore the trends that will redefine our region in the coming year or years. I'll begin with Victor Lim, Regional Security Leader of Asia Pacific region of Cummins Inc. With over 20 years of experience in security leadership and risk management across multiple regions, Victor is currently serving as the Regional Security Leader at Cummins Inc., where he oversees security operations and risk mitigation strategies for the company's operations. In addition to this current role, Victor has been actively involved with ACES International, where he serves as the Director for Asia Pacific Regional Board since January 2025. And he has also held regional leadership role with ACES International Malaysia chapter, where he was, I think, the chairman from 2022 to 2024, and before that, the treasurer. His involvement with ASIS International has allowed him to influence global security standards, foster collaboration within the security community. Victor's commitment to security extends beyond his current responsibilities. He's also been the chairman of the OSAC Malaysia chapter since 2022, and after being a committee member for over a decade. Earlier in his career, Victor has held leadership roles at Dell Technologies as the Regional Security Manager for APJ region, and also he has served as an Area Security Manager at DHL and Account Manager at FreightWatch. We welcome Victor for this forum, and we are looking forward to hearing your thoughts and insights. Next, we have Fabrice Marty. Fabrice Marty is the APAC Security Director at Danone and also leads the corporate intelligence practice for the organization. Fabrice comes with a rich experience into corporate security for over 18 years, and he has been with Danone since 2016 and in Singapore since 2018. I have the pleasure of meeting him multiple times, and his insights have been very fruitful for irking discussions that people do not want to get into. He's currently the APAC Security Director, where his scope is to cover security-related operations for managing people, supply chain, and asset-related disruptions, which includes interactions with not just security department, with HR, operations, IT, data, team, and other stakeholders. On top of his traditional security role, Fabrice has a global responsibility on corporate intelligence, where he looks after threat intelligence, monitoring of international risk, and tailored intelligence work given back to the businesses to look at risks and opportunities in the region. Next up, we have Khairul Nizam Abidin. Kai, he's the APAC security lead at Zebra Technologies with over 15 years of experience in security management and risk mitigation across Asia Pacific. Kai currently serves as the APAC security manager at Zebra, where he oversees regional security operations, manages staff travel safety programs, and ensures protection of critical assets across the APAC region. Before joining Zebra, Kai has held several key roles, including travel safety coordinator at Facebook and assistant security operations manager at Twitter. At Twitter, Kai managed the APAC regional operations centers, developed high-level business continuity plans, coordinated security protocols for staff traveling in high-risk countries. Earlier in the career, Kai served as the associate security consultant at AIP Risk Consulting, where he was responsible for performing TVRAs or threat vulnerability risk assessment for data centers. We welcome Kai to the forum. Next up, we have Jason Ang, Director Sustainability from Meranti Green Steel. Jason Ang is the director at Meranti Green Steel, a company that offers a new approach to low-emission steel making that is both sustainable and commercially competitive. With 20 years of leadership experience across manufacturing, building the environment, and the steel industries, Jason brings a deep understanding of operational performance and organizational transformation. He was most recently awarded the business leader for NS BlueScope Lysat, Singapore, where he oversaw financial performance, business strategy, and sustainable growth initiatives. Prior to this, he led a series of leadership roles across operations, environmental health and safety, sustainability, and supply chain. Mechanical engineer by training, Jason holds an Executive Master of Science in Sustainability from NTU, Singapore. We welcome Jason to the forum, and I hope all the panelists are on the screen, and we can now begin the round of questions. In no particular order, but let me start with Victor first. Victor, we have had a fruitful an hour and a half we started with General Sharma giving us a bird's eye view of what we can foresee. And then we had panel one, which probably pegged towards geopolitical tensions in the region, including technology disruptions that are going to prevail. We are in an era where multifaceted risks are there, and there is no better person than you to guide us on how organizations should balance both proactive and reactive approaches to corporate security and loss prevention. Basically, what I'm asking is what is working for you that the audience can take away. It would be great to hear some examples from your side. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Mitesh, and also thank you to MitKat for organizing and this Mars 2026, as well as inviting me to speak. I think it's still fundamental, right, in terms of for security. And when we look about balancing security and loss prevention, we can safely say it cannot be purely reactive, right? The nature of disruption, as the earlier panel has rightly pointed out, has fundamentally changed. The threats are no longer isolated nor infrequent. They're really fast moving, also interconnected and constant, right? And it spans not just the physical security risks, cyber risks, insider risks, and you mentioned so many of the latest what you call geo-economic confrontation, climate events, and supply chain disruption, right? So in other words, if we wait for something to go wrong before acting, definitely we are already behind, right? The time, trust, and value are often lost even before we respond. And that comes to my first point, right? So I believe for us, as a fundamental, we should anchor our program on active resilience while maintaining a strong reactive capability. So both of these, in my opinion, goes hand in hand, right? So the most significant risks that we face can't be managed by security and loss prevention alone. So we need intelligence, we need cyber, we need risk insurance, BCM, HR. I can go on with the list, but all of us must operate within the same risk ecosystem. Previously, I think we have a lot of thoughts that, we need to converge security and cyber. We need to converge multiple function. I think that's not the ask, or that's not what I'm seeing. I think what we need to do is to break down the silos, right? Instead of just saying we want to converge and bring everybody under the same umbrella, but we should break down the silos from all these functions that we see. And how can we do that, right? Through shared intelligence, cross-functional risk forums like this, horizon scanning, scenario planning, are those type of steps that we can bring functions together to tackle the risk that we are seeing proactively, right? So that is to build proactive resilience. Now, I did say that we still need reactive the capabilities, and we need good reactive capabilities, because incidents will happen, right? No matter how we look at a proactive angle, it will happen. And we need clear escalation protocols and decision authority, so there's no confusion in the beginning, because oftentimes there's always confusion. We need to, in my opinion, invest in training and the crisis and incident team, right? We always have a protocol that we have the crisis team, but are we training them through regular simulations, through exercise, or we just have them on paper, right? A lot of times I think a lot of companies, I have this person, but are we training them? Are we bringing them together, right? So we also need good communication together with the leadership, legal, HR, and corporate communications to manage the impact when we are reactive, and also protect the trust within and outside the company. Now, one of the more important one where the combination of both comes in is that after an incident, we need the after action review. Everyone knows this, but it helps to strengthen the proactive. Whatever we learn during the reactive will help us strengthen our reactive resilience. So in short, I don't want to take up too much time. I think reactive helps protect the organization at the moment, but proactive with integrated security with all the other functions helps us to reduce loss and also to build resilience. So you mentioned balance, or the ask was to look at balance, right? So the organization that gets the balance right, they will move forward faster with more confidence. And of course, we want a clear business advantage to the organization that manage to balance these two the best they can. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. I think I'll just summarize your talk in 2 lines, maybe. Proactive resilience and learning from strong reactive capabilities will give you a framework that will allow organizations to best tackle incidents. And all of this wrapped up with communication with all the relevant stakeholders. We forget that communication sometimes is key to moving forward. Thank you so much. Next, we move to Fabrice from Danone. Hi, Fabrice. My question to you, you work with a large global F&B company that focuses on early life nutrition, medical nutrition, water, dairy products. I mean, basically, you are there in almost more than 100 countries. It would be good to understand that from an organization perspective, how do you leverage on intelligence gathering capabilities? How do you analyze things? And what do you take it towards security? How do you implement it towards your security and loss prevention strategies from there on? Over to you, Fabrice.
Thank you, Mitesh. Hi, Mitesh. Hi, everyone. First, thank you for organizing this great event and for inviting me. And coming back to the question, as Victor mentions, security professionals are expected to respond effectively to some events, but also having a proactive approach, right? Intelligence gathering and analysis support both objectives, anticipate and respond.
Okay.
Most importantly, intelligence helps in defining a relevant strategy and set appropriate security and loss prevention objectives. Let's assume I'm starting from scratch. How will I define the security strategies for my company? I will not copy what I learned from books or from my past roles. I will not stick to the usual typology of security risks. Instead, I will focus on what matters for my company, what can impact the company, what can be costly for the company. And this should be based on facts or credible hypotheses. So how can I get that?
Yeah.
I will get it from info, intel, data, however you call it. So intelligence gathering enables to capture past internal events, current external events, and possible future. Just a short comment here. Collecting internal events and incidents look easy on paper, but I think it's not. Organizations have often short memory, and it can be quite challenging to ensure the proper reporting of problems, incidents, early warning sign. So sometimes it can be very difficult to identify the problems, the vulnerabilities, and then to make sure that you address the proper problems. So once you have your roadmap, intelligence gathering will help you in continuous monitoring the topics of interest, assessing the effectiveness of your strategies, and adjust these strategies when needed. To conclude and illustrate what I've just said, I will take a short example of loss prevention in the supply chain. As you all know, theft in the supply chain can happen everywhere, upstream, mainstream, downstream, and with different methodologies. Of course, the security mission is to have an overall protection end-to-end. However, if your data, your intelligence, your external information coming from other companies or from authorities show you that the main risk is in transport, then it's relevant to focus your efforts on transport. And if you learn that there is an increasing trend of theft in warehouses, for instance, and in one specific geographical area, then it becomes relevant to address that proactively to fix it. So this is how we are trying to leverage intelligence gathering and analysis at Danone to feed our strategies, and most importantly, for being remaining constantly relevant for the organization.
Thank you, Fabrice. That is great insight. I think I like your way that as a person with wide responsibilities, and most of the security teams are lean, it is important to understand the importance of anticipating and responding and keeping yourself relevant. Understanding what's happening around us at all times is important because resources are limited in terms of both time and people here. Okay, next we move to Kai. Kai is a good friend. I always call him a one-man army because he's managing multiple regions as a corporate security lead for Zebra Technologies. Kai, what I would love to understand is, because you have limited time and resources, what are the technologies or tools that you leverage to enhance your intelligence gathering and analysis capabilities in the region?
Right. Thank you, Mitesh. I think that's the million-dollar question in our field, right? How do we cut through all this noise and get to us and get to what matters and impacts the organization? And since I'm sitting on a panel with MitKat Symposium, I think I have to be candid and state upfront that I'm indeed using MitKat DataServe platform. But I just want to share why I chose them. Let's be honest. Most of us, we are doing regional roles. We're not chained to a desk. We are in the airports. We are on the roads. We're moving between sites. Sometimes traditional intelligent dashboard is not suitable for us because we can't have the luxury to sit in front of the computer or the desk. So the first thing I love about this platform, it's actually the most best effective way of communicating is through WhatsApp. We live on our phones. MitKat provides this flexibility to send intel incidents through WhatsApp. I think that's great. That builds resilience because if it's just through emails, sometimes we are fatigued through emails. So with WhatsApp, that really helps us. And then at the same time, the mobile apps also provide us a useful platform to dig deeper. And not forgetting, I also have access to the analysts as well. So if there is a particular incident that interests me or has a direct impact and I need to find out more, I can make use of their analysts, right, to tell me more, and so that I can make my own decision on what steps that needs to be taken. All right. And I think lastly is the personalization. They are a company, and this platform has provided a lot of personalization for us. And they are able to come out with different various ways on providing reports that are friendly to executive readings. It's concise, strips off of jargon, and it focus on the business impact. So MitKat is one of them, but I just have to say again, what's most important is we need to understand what is the biggest impact to the organization, what certain departments decide there is a major disruption for them, rather than just having all this intelligence gathering, but you don't even know what is the biggest impact to the organization. I think that's the most important thing that we need to do.
Okay, thanks, Kai. Thanks for attesting our platform. But at the same time, I would like to highlight that it is definitely some capabilities of the platform, but understanding and keeping your other networks on as well. Network of friends, corporate security professionals in and within the region that help you give the additional inputs at times when required. Thank you so much. Next, we move to Jason. And Jason, I have to be candid. Of all the panelists that we have across all three panels that we have, you truly bring a different flavor on the table. You're the right person to highlight probably how and what measures organizations can take to tackle climate risk, which is as a material intelligence and loss prevention issue, because you have a different outlook towards it compared to other security leaders. So over to you, Jason. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Mitesh. So a very good morning and afternoon to the distinguished audience, friends, and everyone. Greetings from Singapore. So thank you again, Mitesh, for the introduction, and then thank you to Pawan, Sandeep, and then the management of MitKat and everyone at MitKat to bring us together for this annual risk symposium. So it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. Like just now Mitesh mentioned, actually looking from the lens of sustainability across the region, and then especially for this interesting topic on trends in intelligence, security, and loss prevention. So in the earlier keynote, Lieutenant General Sharma actually mentioned about climate risk and then resilience, and then just now in the earlier panel, Mr. Sanjay also mentioned about the changes in challenges in the current supply chain. So also as shared by Atria just now in the MitKat APAC risk outlook report, the top risk in the whole report is natural disasters. So I'm actually joining today from the perspective of Meranti Green Steel. So we're actually headquartered in Singapore, building a generation of low emission steelmaking in Thailand, as well as an iron making plant in Oman. So in that context, risk looks a little bit different, not just in terms of securities and operation, but also in terms of physical climate risks, both acute and chronic transition risks, directly affecting the resilience, credibility, market positioning, and of course, reputation of a company. Climate change is a growing challenge, and of course, sustainability has become central to how businesses make decisions. So have you wondered how many climate, so maybe a short question, how many climate systems are there in your country or in the country that your operations are operating? So just to share, Singapore is actually affected by multiple climate systems throughout the whole year. So there's a reason why is it hot, why is it wet. So there's a reason because of the different climate system. And then of course with global warming, this climate system can be more intense, can be more disruptive. The duration can be longer. So the question again, with this climate change risks, will your asset be climate resilient? So according to the World Economic Forum, where they're actually doing in Davos now, they actually did a study in the World Economic Forum that the losses from climate disasters are expected to reach about US $308 billion. And then with annual disasters costs reaching about US $145 billion in 2025. So assets are in millions or even billions of dollars. So if you have to build your asset in or your upcoming data centers, examples, where will you be building your assets? Will it be built at an area where it's actually being flooded? Report or even the system mentioned that areas that are being constantly flooded, or where your supply chain, where they risk of always having bushfires. So these are some of the risks that is going to be considered and upcoming, and it will be your growing focus. And then of course, being said that there are also successful cases where operations or even organization studied years of flood data and then make the decision to actually elevate certain assets to actually prevent losses from the worst flooding scenarios in that country. So for a long time, climate sits always mainly with the sustainability or reporting team. Today is actually a very clear intelligence, security, and then of course a loss prevention issue. So from perspective of Meranti Green Steel, climate risks actually show up in very practical ways. So extreme heat wave, affecting plants efficiency, worker safety as well. Flooding, storm can actually disrupt ports, operations, logistics supply chain, water, energy stress, introduce volatility into the operations. These are not abstract risks, but they translate directly into downtime costs, and then of course reputational exposure. One key measure that every organization can actually take on treating climate signal is actually early warning intelligence. Where we try to build our plan, make sure that we actually actively access the physical climate data, weather patterns, infrastructure exposure to understand where this disruption can actually likely to occur. And of course, this will shift from reactive to preventing them upfront. Second measure is also moving from a static risk register, when we have always primary risk register. These are all dynamic climate events that can be in the form of stronger intensity, increased duration, and of course stress testing the scenarios. So this helps to actually identify where assets can be vulnerable, where supply chain can be more tightened, and then where customers, most importantly, customers' orders may be affected. And of course, regulatory changes could actually create unexpected causes. Or CBAM is one of them, rising carbon taxes. So these are some of the lens from a sustainability point of view where intelligence, security, and loss prevention can be tightened up. And then, of course, finally, there's also a mindset shift. So climate risk is not just about compliance and disclosure now. It's about resilience and competitiveness. Organizations that actually integrate climate intelligence into their day-to-day operations can create better position to secure their assets, reduce their losses. So in summary, tackling climate risks are actually at a loss prevention issue comes down to three things. So treating climate intelligence as using scenario-based thinking rather than static risk or climate register, and then managing risks together with across the whole ecosystem, your value chain, and then that's where the real resilience is actually built. Thank you.
Yeah, great insight. So, Jason, that brings to my point. You rightly pointed that the climate intelligence is a broader scope. It is not just what we see. It has to be proactively managed and maintained, rather than a once in a year risk register update, right? So, I clearly remember we got a mandate to do a flood risk assessment in Dubai, and when we were sharing this with a couple of clients, they said, "Why in Dubai you're doing a flood risk scan?" After we did it, no kidding, after 6 months there was an actual flood, and we were all surprised that really certain areas where we believe things might not go wrong, things to go wrong. Okay. Let me move to the second round of questions that I would like to take. And in the interest of time, we'll just keep it crisp in terms of responses. I would request from the panel. Yeah. Victor, I just want to touch upon, because we have talked about this topic is on trends, right? This panel discussion. I just want to understand that how are current security leaders, what kind of skills they are developing, what kind of talent are they? I mean, are you looking to hire as well? Because we are in a diverse and a very fragile risk framework. So, what skills or talent are you looking to develop, or organization, corporate security leaders to develop to stay ahead in the intelligence and security space?
Mitesh, I don't know whether I can keep it short, but I'll try. Right. So this actually is a topic close to my heart, right? So more recently, because I've been trying to connect security professionals with the vacancies that are existing in the market, especially here in Malaysia. And I think oftentimes our security professionals find it hard to secure a suitable role. And at the same time, you see the companies continuing to re-advertise the same open positions for months. So clearly, it's a very tough job market out there for both parties. It could be a mismatch of expectation and skills. But while looking at this and this question, and also helping security professionals, there's this report I came across, and that's why I say I probably can't do it short. There's this report from 2025 annual CSO survey from the Clarity Factory. I'm not sure if anyone has seen that, but it's one of the focus area is on talent. So I find it very amped that we should talk about it. And what better way to talk about talent and skills than by hearing what the CSOs themselves are thinking, right? What are the things that they are looking for, right? So the survey is very clear. Talent is one of the biggest risks in security today. I think even last year we saw a few reports coming out that security management, I think WEF said security management is one of the key jobs that people are looking for, and it's very critical, right? So the number one thing right now is to find a multifaceted security professional is difficult. Technical skills, in my opinion, are no longer enough, right? So you have to have the soft skills. But what are the 4 areas that this report shared, right? First is analytical and critical thinking. So what does that mean? People who can connect the dots across data, all this intelligence, geopolitics, insider risk, and not just responding to incidents. So we need to pivot from connecting the data, don't just say, hey, I'm a security manager, I'm here just to respond to events. Number 2, communications and influence. And I said that before, right? So intelligence, we are talking about intelligence, only has value if the leaders understand what it is and act on it. And one of the things that the report actually call out is storytelling and executive level briefing are now core security skill, right? So not just communicate, how do you tell a good story? No, don't say, don't just say this is the standard you need to follow. Why? Tell the story, right? Third is business literacy, right? Security teams need to understand not just security. We need to understand the operations. We need to understand the business strategy. We need to understand the risk so that the intelligence that we gather is formed as a business impact, not
Did we lose him?
Yeah, I am not able to hear as well.
Yeah, Mitesh, you can move to.
it is.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think my internet
We
is
lost you
unstable.
for 10, 15 seconds. Yeah. No worries.
Okay, all right. Then the last one is, I repeat, is technology and AI. Again, this is not to replace human judgment, but to augment it. And again, we use AI and analytics to move from being, like I earlier said, from reactive to intelligence-led prevention. So I'll cut at that because you want it to be short, and then I'll pass to the next, pass back to you.
I
Thank
think
you.
everybody should take back this, storytelling and influence is key for security managers, leaders at any level to take your business case forward, right? Okay, next I move to Fabrice. Fabrice, on the same, probably line of for your last discussion that you had, you said that organization like yours have too much of data and tons of data. So how can organizations leverage on internal data which they develop through multiple systems that are there to identify and mitigate potential losses? Can you cite some examples on the same?
Yes, thank you. So let's continue with my previous example, loss prevention in the supply chain, okay? So of course, security team should contribute to loss prevention. Basically, it's about designing physical measures, okay, to prevent non-authorized people from getting access to the product. It's putting in place monitoring tools and practices to detect anomalies or investigate when necessary. And as we said previously, it's also share some intelligence coming from external experts, okay? However, this is not enough because theft diversion can be organized even if good physical measures are in place. Because first, organized crimes and people who are committed fraud are usually smart enough and can adjust and bypass security measures. Secondly, you may have collusion with insiders. Third, you may have silent loss. It means the loss which look insignificant or which are below the alert threshold. Okay, so this is where data is king, as we often hear during business and marketing talks. With my example, when we talk about data, it is about inventories, okay, physical and digital inventories. So you talk about stock with specific attention to some lines like written off, damaged and expired products, or returns from the market, okay? You have as well operational data like traceability features, scanning along the journey, real-time location data, trucks ATA deviation, sensor data, etc. You have as well some financial and transaction data, reconciliation, order versus reception, returns versus credit notes, etc. And you have as well some AT data, behavioral anomalies. So someone who committed system overrides, manual correction, lack of segregation of duties, etc. So you have plenty of data that you need to collect. And all these data are managed and are owned by different departments: operations, supply chain, logistics, finance, quality, IT, etc. So ideally, all these functions should be around the table to first define what data we should look at. Secondly, how to gather and analyze it and turn data into insights. And third, how to react in case of anomalies. Okay, so this is not easy to implement, but this is where internal synergies and coalitions are necessary to develop data analytics, especially in loss prevention. Security cannot work alone, and you cannot rely on good physical audit to say we are safe.
Okay. Good. I think I like the idea where you said, right? So data is there, but how do you turn that data into insights? Connecting the dots is where it matters for organizations, and keeping an eye for anomalies is where organization or security leaders should focus on. Thank you so much, Fabrice, on that. Kai, I'll just move towards the next topic for you. What I wanted to understand, as a security professional you travel a lot in the region, has exposure to multiple markets, risks, and mitigation in individual markets across the region. What trends are you seeing that are shaping up the future of intelligence, security, and loss prevention? And based on trends, how are you positioning your organization to mitigate or making sure that the organization is prepared for success for such kind of threats?
Yeah, okay. So my answer is really shaped by the realities of my role. As I think at the same time, as mentioned by some of the previous panelists, how we are all fatigued by incident management, day-to-day operations, and especially when you're a solo regional manager, one-man show covering the vast area. You don't just look at technology, you see it as a force multiplier, all right? So now, I've probably seen like all the big trends, the major one is everyone is talking about being reactive, from being reactive to being predictive. They were talking about combining the cyber and physical security, using AI-powered CCTV to identify predictive behaviors. Yes, that is the absolute goal, right? But to be frank, these are leap amounts of an enormous investment and ongoing maintenance. All right. More importantly, selling the concept of predictive across a global organization is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So while we keep our eyes on that horizon, I believe the more immediate and game-changing trend is about perfecting the reaction, how fast we can react, all right, and how accurate we can react. As much as we want it to be predictive, at the end of the day, we have all this information. What do we do with it? How do we analyze it? And how do we disseminate all this information in the correct and most accurate order? So imagine this, an incident happened. All you need to do is just press one button using automation, using AI, all right? So all this information, and then using at the same time all the different applications that are available, to provide us this information, all this being sent out to create a response, coordinate response. Right now, most of us as regional security managers, we are frankly looking out for our playbooks, running through our SOPs, our processes and procedures. Why can't we just automate this whole process? This is my perception, and I'm currently working on it. And I'm trying to make one step at a time to automate things. All right, so that this will be the future of how we work. Security managers are people who analyze quickly and react quickly and react accurately as well.
Yeah. Thank you. I like the idea that there is all security managers are born and gifted with limited budget. You do not have unlimited budget. Ideas are many, but execution is directed by the budget that has been provisioned by the organization. So yeah, thanks on those thoughts. Next, we move to Jason. Jason, I think you are touching upon a very important topic on climate risk and all of that. Can you highlight how organizations can leverage on collaboration and information sharing, especially to manage climate and operational risk across a diverse ecosystem?
Sure. Thanks, Mitesh. Thanks for the questions. So just to follow on my earlier session on climate risk. So when we talk about managing the risk, we know that there's this climate change focus. We need to kind of make sure that this issue is not just one. So no organization can actually do this alone. So climate risk actually cuts across the entire ecosystem and value chain, of course. And then there's also no set boundaries. You can't say that, hey, flood until here, stop. The whole climate change issue is across all regions, across different countries. So for Meranti Green Steel, our exposure does not just stop at the plant gate. So we actually extend to our raw material suppliers, so where we get our raw materials from, our energy, renewable energy, water, hydrogen supply, scrap sourcing, logistics, ports, utilities, insurers, regulators. So each part of the ecosystem actually see risk differently. And then unless these signals are actually shared, intelligence are actually shared, these critical information are actually lost. So we're actually building from the ground up where sustainability topics are in our agendas with our stakeholders, from climate risk discussion, nature, cultural heritage, to even biodiversities. So the loss from climate disasters, such as a recent example I can give you, last year we actually have major flooding across cities in Southeast Asia, or even across APAC, driven by intense monsoon rain, cyclonic activities, and then unusual weather patterns. So countries like Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Vietnam actually experience diverse or devastating flooding. Extreme cold now in Europe. If we are shipping or even getting your supply chain from Europe, recently, there's actually extremely cold weather that causes ports or even airports to shut. So where will you get your supply from, or where you are able to ship your finished good to, or even services to Europe? And then, of course, recently there's also heat wave in Australia, bushfires. So these are some of the evolving or climate issues that is also on the ground. Sorry. So one practical example where organization can leverage on collaboration is by treating partners as intelligence sources. Right, you need to build up your whole ecosystem that I mentioned earlier. So not just treating them as vendors and customers. So energy providers might see grid instability before it actually impacts production. So water and desalination plants operator may detect water stress, intake temperature change, or even sanity shift before they actually impact industrial operations. Logistic partners especially, they are very sensitive. They may detect weather-related disruption across ports or even along their transport routes. So insurers also see emerging loss patterns across industry as well. They are actually very sharp, very sensitive before individual companies can know all these changes. So before intelligence is actually, when this intelligence is actually shared early, it allows preventive action to kind of become proactive rather than reactive. And then, of course, another important element is standardizing how this information is being shared. So climate and, of course, operation data, like I mentioned just now, the register, is only useful when it's timely, comparable, and then, of course, trusted. So collaboration between different ecosystem plays a critical role during transition risks, regulatory changes, carbon pricing, disclosure requirements. So these are all the evolving things. So we not always static. How you get all these intelligence so that we can actually put in security and make sure that data are all utilized. And then, of course, sharing all this intelligence across peers and advisors help organizations avoid surprises. Organizations don't like surprises. Even senior management don't like surprises. And then, of course, reduce all these compliance risks and how to actually protect your own reputation, which is increasingly becoming a form of loss prevention. So from our expertise, and then as I mentioned earlier, collaboration is actually the most effective when it actually embedded into the decision making and not just treated as a crisis. Just like a lot of panelists did mention crisis response. And then, of course, regular engagement with partners, your stakeholders, vendors, customers, scenario discussion, and then joint planning, build resilience before this disruption can occur. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Okay. Thank you. I think in the interest of time, I'll just probably like one sound bite from each panel discussion. What is the one takeaway that you would like the audience that has been waited so long that they can take back within their own organization, probably to evaluate, deliberate, discuss, and probably implement as well? I'll go with the same order. Victor, probably a quick one-liner that you would like organizations to, or the panel, the audience today to consider and take away.
Yeah, I think when you go back to your organization, probably sounds weird because talking about technology. Don't start with tools or technology. Start with conversations, and like I said, sit down with other departments, talk about the risk together, break the silos, agree on what is the risk that commonly shared, and agree on what you can do collectively, right? So I think earlier on in the start, a few people mentioned this. focus on what is important to your organization. I think that's where we put our resources and time to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Great point. Fabrice, from your side.
Yes, so we heard how much the world is crazy. Okay, so for a security professional, it's a huge opportunity to help our organizations, and for that, we need to adapt. We need to build trust with our leadership, and we need to remain relevant. So we need to address the key risk and go beyond the headlines. We need to use the right tools to improve our practices and analysis capabilities. And finally, we need to work in collaboration because security should not be seen as a standalone function. So here are my key points.
Thank you, Fabrice. Quite relevant. Kai, from your side.
My take is this. I think many of the panelists have already mentioned what I wanted to share. Go back, break down the walls, talk to all your different departments, all right, understand what their needs, their wants, their exposure, all right. And then don't forget, we have tools like AI right now, which according to Danny say it can be a black magic or it can be a white magic. So make use of that, and then ask ourselves, what can we use this AI for to help for our daily lives? Anything that's mundane or whatsoever, learn how to use AI, learn how to use scripts, and many a times us security managers, we're just focusing on like, okay, what are the threats, what we're looking at, and how we react. But we also need to re-look at ourselves and ask, how can we improve ourselves? Because AI is a big thing right now. Sooner or later, we are either going to be replaced by it or we are going to manage it. So yeah.
Thanks. Use of AI probably to upgrade yourself. Lastly, Jason.
Yep. So I mentioned earlier, like treat climate data. You have plenty of data. Use the data, and then action on it. So don't wait for incident to happen. So monitor the signals. Talk to your value chain. Stress test your operations. So we can probably try in the next meeting with your vendors, use climate risk as a topic. So inter countries, use it as a topic. When you anticipate risks, you share insight, intelligence, and embed them into your day-to-day decision making as well. So don't just prevent losses. You build resilience, your credibility, and then of course long-term value creation for your own stakeholders. So that's a step where every organization can take tomorrow. Thanks.
Great. Once again, I would like to thank all the four panelists. Victor, Fabrice, Kai, Jason, thank you so much for your insights. And I will go back to Hayat to continue the symposium.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah, for spearheading this panel. It was truly enlightening and left us with a new holistic approach for the matter. It is always a pleasure to listen to such eminent speakers. Incredibly relevant topics covered so smoothly and in depth, combined with the enthusiasm from our audience, makes such sessions more impactful and memorable. And now, for the third and final panel discussion on technology security, a topic without which we cannot do justice to risk and resilience in 2026. Please join me in welcoming our visionary leader and moderator, Pawan Desai, CEO, MitKat Advisory. Over to you, Mr. Desai.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, can you check Wasim has joined or not? I can't see him in the. He's a resiliency guy, but I hope we don't have to have a resiliency for him, hopefully. And thank you everyone for a great, I think, yeah, Wasim is here. So we were just thinking about your resiliency. If you cannot join, then Wasim, thank you for joining. Thank you, Andres. Great session till now, and thank you for almost 250 participants who are still listening for last 3 hours, and it has been really engaging and insightful sessions as always. I think I can't have a better screen in front of me. All great friends on this panel, and comes with such a great and diverse experience. So I'll just put the context of this session, and then I'll let this panelist talk more about that. So I think welcome to the panel on the technology on security, which trends, opportunities, and risk. So I was told I was in Hyderabad yesterday, and it was a great session by somebody from Microsoft, and he says if AI is the future or the present, then what we are doing, the learning or what we are doing today is the highway which we need to create. That is what is missing today. And the technology, what the backbone, what we are creating is the highway essentially. So nobody can go into the future without the technology highway. So the question doesn't arise that we are adopting technology or not adopting technology or AI. That is given, that has to be done. How do we adopt it is the question, and what needs to be done for careful adoption. That is what is important. One thing which keeps me awake, I think, which a lot of us will be thinking a lot, is that are we accelerating towards a future of limitless opportunities or a future of unprecedented vulnerability? I don't know the answer. I'll ask this question to our panelists also if we can get some insights on that. But that really keeps me awake in the night, because when I see the numbers, if you see the crime, I'm adding cyber crime and all other different crimes together. Uh, 2025, the economy of the crime and dominated by the cyber crime is 10.5 trillion. That is basically the third biggest country in the world after China and US in terms of economy. So that is a scale at which the crimes are happening. The adoption, if you see in Asia Pacific, almost 60% of the organizations face ransomware attack. That has been the published figure. I'm sure the numbers would have been much higher. And the adoption of AI is also accelerating. It is very evolved in a lot of companies, but if you still go to traditional conventional companies, it is still not adopted. So in the periphery, we are adopting AI and technologies, but in core processes, the adoption is still in meager 25-30% in the core processes. And most of the companies still do not have the AI risk governance framework in place. Everybody's figuring out because regulations are not clear, so everybody's figuring that out. So that is where the future is going to go. And can we weaponize the technology or not? That should be the point of discussion with all of us. On a lighter note, I think one of the CEOs told that we are investing heavily billions of dollars on security, millions of dollars in AI of security. On the other side, the hackers are saying that we are also investing in chat GPT because the technology is becoming neutral now. So there is a democratization of entire technology which is happening, and that is making a level playing field for all the companies, whether big, small, bad or good, to really make a difference is there. So with that, I would like to welcome four really great leaders who live, breathe security and resilience. Craig Foster, we don't really need any introduction to him. But I have to do my duty. He is the head of corporate real estate, health, safety, and security, crisis management, and resilience at Grab currently. He is driving resilience for one of the Asia's fastest growing tech platforms. He is also the chair for ACSU, which is Asia Crisis and Security Group, a very, very well respected forum to exchange ideas and learn amongst the professionals. Thanks a lot, Craig, and welcome to this panel, as always. Andres, he is the security manager at Pertamina International Shipping and chairman of ACES Indonesia chapter, expert in securing critical infra and shaping security standards. We'll be like to hear your views on energy security and on shipping and critical logistics side. I think everyone should follow him on LinkedIn. I think he comes up with so amazing insights on security. How do we implement? How do we change culture? I think I really get fascinated with the kind of insights, Andreas, which you put on your post. Thank you very much for doing that. He is also very active on the ACES Indonesia front. Welcome, Andreas, to this panel. Wasim, co-founder and CEO of Risk Professionals, advising governments and global enterprises on AI risk, cyber resilience, and business continuity. He currently serves as non-executive director at MBA Australia, where he provides strategic guidance and oversight to ensure organizations' continued growth and development. With a deep understanding of security, risk management, and business continuity and compliance, Wasim has contributed significantly to both private and public sectors. He has immense exposure and experience, uh, spanning for almost 2.5 to 3 decades now. Paul, dear friend, is Deputy CEO and Managing Partner at SRS, one of the leading companies to look for in security space in Asia. And I think doing a lot of I think knocking in the Europe and US market also is helping a lot of multinational companies to integrate cyber and physical security companies work across 15 countries. Paul is very, very actively involved with forums like ACES as a part of the Asia Pacific board and also in TAPA. Also worked with companies like Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. I think he was part of one of the integration project. I think that is maybe one of the fastest integration, or I said one of the longest integration in the history of mankind. I think I don't know how many years it took for integration to happen. And I can go on and on about Paul, but I think welcome, Paul, to this the session. Maybe I'll just to start with Craig, because I think you're the technology company, and I think in the space of mobility, I think everybody likes to call you're on a mobility company in the space which uses technologies the other way around. With your kind of an experience, everything is needed like this. Everything is about convenience, speed. Everybody talks about those things always. How do we balance security and innovation, which becomes a sort of a pole, I'll not say pole support, but doesn't sync well with that. So how do we think about that? Because every company would like to have that kind of a speed and that kind of innovation, but keeping security in mind. What's your thought on that? Great.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Pawan. Great to be here.
Yep.
I'll start, if I could, Pawan, with a sporting analogy, which is I'm going to argue today, I think, throughout the panel session, that you have to be on the field in order to influence the game. Now, whether Craig Foster's run onto the field or whether he's been pushed onto the field, that's something we could talk about over a beer. But I think it's not an either-or question. Yeah. I mean, I was at an internal session yesterday, a so-called brown bag, with our tech teams. And our engineers are already anecdotally suggesting that they're seeing a 20% faster speed on many of the activities, the engineering activities that they're undertaking for Grab. They're already seeing a 30% better output. And I'm referring mainly to Grab's use of Gen AI tools, which I'm sure we'll come back to several times. So my answer is it's not really an either or. It's a question of our mindset. And I think we'll come back to that point as well throughout this session. Because it's happening fast. You've already referred to it. And you either get on the field and you adopt and you embrace and you learn and you enhance your skill sets. And then I would argue we manage the risks parallel to that. Because if you take the more traditional position that all of us have probably taken about other risks throughout our careers, then unfortunately you're just likely to be left behind. So my position has been to lean forward, if you like, try to think carefully about my mindset, try to think carefully about what it is that I'm here to do in terms of supporting the success of Grab, and then jump in, learn, adapt, but be that voice of risk as you go along. That's how I've tried to balance, Pawan, so far.
Great. I'll have a follow-up question to you, Craig, before I move on to Andreas. How do you see? I didn't put this question to you, but I'm sure with your experience, we don't need to worry about that. How do you see the KPIs and KRS changing for security professionals? Because earlier it was very, 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 I'll say, tactical. Number of trainings, number of cameras, number of incidents, all those are going to be passé. So how do you see a new CSO and their KPIs will look like?
Yeah. So the question comes back to that 20% faster, 30% better, right? I mean, are we seeing such an enhancement? I suspect we aren't so far. And again, we can unpack some of the reasons as to why that might be. Part of it might be our mindset. Part of it might be the legacy tools that still tend to inhabit the security world. Part of it might be, what does the supply chain for security services look like? Are we ready to adopt and adapt and experiment? But in theory, Pawan, we should be seeing enhanced surveillance and monitoring. We should be seeing smarter access control with biometrics. We should be seeing data that allows us to be more predictive. We should be seeing integration and automation with other building systems, other security systems, and we should already be experimenting with Gen AI in some of those spaces. One example at Grab is that we are in the process of launching a digital twin, if you like, to help us manage crisis management. So we've created an app. We've found use cases for that app. We've linked that app in our production environment to our internal AI tools. And we envisage a scenario where crisis happens, team forms, and immediately we bring up the incident manager app, and the app helps us to manage through the crisis, prompting us, looking back at historical data, maybe drafting communications for us, keeping time, keeping log, keeping record, all those things that we currently do manually. We're hoping very soon to have a digital version. So it's early days, and there's a bit of a gap for corporate security to make up, but I think it's about mindset.
Great. I think excellent point. I think a great example which you gave. I was talking to somebody last month. So what I said is, instead of doing those tabletop, which was a passe, and of course we still have to do it as a compliance and this thing. Now is the world of micro simulations. You quickly get on, do a 15-minute exercise, 30-minute exercise on various scenarios. Just do once in a week kind of thing, instead of doing it once in a quarter or once in 6 months kind of thing. Very, because the data is available. You don't have to search for data. Everybody is available online, and quickly get on the results. So I think, yeah, what you said is phenomenal. And if you are able to get into that, I think the resiliency will improve multifolds. Thanks a lot, Craig, for that. I'll come back to you with follow-up questions. Moving on to Andreas, I think you handle a very different environment. It's a critical infrastructure, shipping, oil and gas. It's an energy sector, very different compared to the fast-paced technology sectors and other kind of sectors, which everybody's fascinated. But moving an elephant takes time. You cannot have resiliency plans or alternate what you said, the power plants or oil and gas station or refineries. It's very difficult. So how do you see resiliency, or how do you security changing, or how do you monitor blind spots in these kind of critical infrastructure, mega this thing, and how do you see security transforming with adoption of technology in your field, Andreas?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Pawan. First of all, I would like to thank MitKat for inviting me to be one of the panelists.
Yeah.
So your question is about basically the risk that we have as a critical national infrastructure, right? So okay, right now we always talk about the physical and cyber convergence. But actually, this topic has been going on for quite a long time, but maybe not yet adopted fully in the industry. But I don't see the problem is actually on the technology, Pawan, but more on the human side. Because I think that the biggest risk that we are facing, including us from critical national infrastructure, is on the system interdependency, about the cyber physical convergence, and last but not least is human and system mismatch. In shipping and energy infrastructure, for example, we already have like a digital navigation system. We have OT network, operational technology networks, and remote monitoring. All of them increase our efficiency, but also expand the attack surface. So usually we mitigate these issues by treating the cyber risk as physical safety and operational risk, and not just IT issues. And we also applying scenario-based security risk assessment that include system failure and also human error. We also ensure manual fallback capability and decision authority during system degradation, because technology must enhance resilience and not replace judgment. So I think the key words here is graceful degradation always beats perfect automation. I think that's all from me.
Great.
Thank
I think
you.
amazing insights, Andreas. Because a
Yeah.
lot of us do not know what goes into shipping and what kind of complexity on navigation and all those comes into that. It is not an easy domain to work in. I'll just come back to Wasim. Before that, I'll just want to come back to Craig again. Sorry, moving the thing because the convergence has been spoken a lot. I think you have worked in, I think, on Barclays. This thing is, I think, one of the iconic conversion which happened on the at a CSO level. Would you like to share your experience? How did it change the way we used to look at security? Because it was under the CSO where cyber integration with physical and everything really happened at a grassroots level. What was your experience and how different it was from a conventional thing?
Yeah, so it was a great experience, Pawan. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it's sustained, and I think some of the other studies that many of your attendees would be aware of, it's something like 15% or less of corporate security functions have converged. So it's a very low number, at least in terms of physical convergence. Collaboration is perhaps the word that is a bit more appropriate. But if I just give one very quick example, branch security, individual comes off the street in the UK, asks to use a telephone. Friendly branch staff says, yes, why don't you go into the little cubicle there, sir? By all means, use the phone. He goes in, he manages to unplug a CPU. He sticks it under his jacket, and he runs out into the high street with a CPU from a bank branch. Now, in a purely physical security sense, I might have heard of that incident. I would probably have recorded it. I would have probably looked for CCTV evidence. I might have advised the branch to make a police report. I might have then gone back and done a risk assessment and seen how we could have improved and prevented that from happening again. Probably the end of the story, unless I had some enhancements that I wanted to roll out across the branch network. But in this CSO model, in the same first few hours of looking at that case, I could deploy a forensics team, computer forensics team, to another branch to image that same CPU so that we could better understand what's at risk, what's been lost, because I wouldn't know. The branch didn't really know. Straight away, we were able to do that. Secondly, I can deploy another cyber team, our threat intelligence team, to get onto the dark web, begin to look at trends, gangs, groups, who might be offering a piece of hardware, who might be beginning to sell customer detail within the dark web. So those are just two examples of a much more joined up holistic approach, so that not only do we respond as one team to be much more effective in our response, to understand what's at risk and then determine the next steps, but then the next steps were also aligned. We can not only look at the physical enhancements, we can look at what other, what data do we not need to store on that CPU? What other measures could we take to protect the data better? How was the data protected? So I found it to be hugely instructive, Pawan, in terms of my own learning. And I saw many examples of the power of that one team integrated approach.
Great example. Thank you very much for sharing that. Coming to Wasim, I think you come more from the resiliency side of it, which is it. When you look from your lens, how do you see the world adopting the entire AI thing, and what are the associated risks in security and resilience, and how will the resiliency of the future will look like? Because the whole landscape is changing on the way we are doing business operations.
Yes, of course, of course. So first of all, I think thanks once again inviting me to MitKat Symposium. So I think this time around, every year I should be waiting for the invitation. So thanks a lot. So really glad to be here and then share my views. Now, I think you started with few comments. Now, one thing is that whether we should use AI or it's too risky to use AI. This is one thing, and the other thing, the other notion you mentioned about the highway, to get on a highway to use AI, and this is what I've been speaking on a few other events now. And my tagline is a journey from don't use AI to use it responsibly. Now, this responsibly has a lot of depth, and this is what we need to work on. Now, a couple of years back, like a person written an article and then using the Gen AI, and then it was caught before it got published. But then no action was taken against the person because one, there were no policy, no governance around it. So now that tells us that we need to have those governance structure, policies, procedure, all those guardrails, because I think we are pretty much left with no option but to use AI. But then we need to have a proper guardrails around it. So this is, answering your question now. Now and the other thing is now from resilience perspective, I think we need to think differently now. Before, from resilience, we were thinking about the binary scenarios now that the system fail or don't fail. But now your system might be functioning. There's no system failure. So system is still operating, but then all your AI models, they might have drifted from their original output, the algorithm, or someone might have done data poisoning and all this. So basically the output that you were intending, you are not getting the right output. And if you are not monitoring your system input and output, of course, then, so that's a scenario. That's another scenario that we need to introduce in our whole resilience planning. The other thing is now, we don't want to reinvent the whole wheel, so we need to use our current resilience framework, but then we need to embed this one, and we can talk in detail later maybe. And then even from now, when you said use it or don't use it, like from cyber perspective as well, there were a lot of hacking, a lot of cyber attacks and all. We never stopped using it, but we need to have those cybersecurity controls in place. So now if we already have cybersecurity governance and the controls, use the same and then embed, for example, we have bring your own device policy, for example. Now we have done this update of those policies, and because you have now this bring your own AI. So within the same policy now, update the policy for bring your own AI. You already have the governance board for the cybersecurity, and you have the terms of reference for that one. Now use the same and update for the AI. And I think one of the critical issues before we put the guardrails, the issues that we are finding is how many systems that are being used in your organization. Sometimes there is no one is they are using because these are browser based, or sometimes that you are using a tool which was not AI enabled, but now vendor has suddenly switched on the AI capability and you're not familiar. So now these are the governance structure, the guardrails that we are putting around those tools. So it starts from procurement, it starts from the middle. You need to identify an AI system and you need to take those corrective actions.
I think very well said. I think on a more lighter side, we were doing service to one of our clients, and this time when we went for renewal, we said our platform is AI enabled, and suddenly the procurement said, "Okay, AI, hold on."
Yeah.
There is a 6-month process of evaluating the whole thing back, and it is still getting evaluated. So yes, it's important. It's an important aspect because you are getting into the network and what all it can do the damage. We really don't know the extent of damage which can be done.
And just to add a bit, if you allow, here in New South Wales in Australia, they have given us a framework for an assessment, and the assessment is required even from an idea stage.
Okay.
So they're saying even when you start thinking about an AI solution, from there you need to start assessment, and then during all the phases of your up to the production.
Maybe it will be very interesting if you can share a link in the chat box. I think it'll be interesting to a lot of people.
Definitely.
Really great. I like the idea of starting from the idea. How do you integrate?
Exactly.
Right. Great. I think coming to Paul, I think what happens is I think I understand the problems of service providers like you and me. Everybody's adopting AI 20-30%, but as service provider, everybody wants 200% integration. They want everything fast, everything now, everything here, and everything automated kind of thing. So what kind of challenges do you face to just now for the future services or the new services when we go and everybody wants everything to be integrated, everything to be combined, cyber, physical, integrated, and everything. Everybody wants those kind of integrations. What kind of challenges do you see as service providers like us or will be facing, and what kind of measures we need to take quickly to move on to the next level?
Yeah, Pawan, first, thank you for having me. Good to be here, and of course, good to be together with all familiar faces. I think for us, from a service provider's perspective, right, we don't start with technology. I think we start with risk, right? Because cybersecurity and physical security can no longer be treated as to be in the same domain, right? Today, because a cybersecurity breach can create immediate physical consequences, and a physical breach can also easily expose digital systems, right? So from that perspective, of course, when we look at our approach in integration by design, we first look at mapping the client's critical assets, threat landscape, business impact. And then we align the cyber controls, physical security measures, and operational processes into a single coordinated risk framework. I think Trek mentioned something like that earlier. Technology plays an important role, though through a shared platform, right? AI-enabled monitoring and real-time intelligence, but it always supported by clear governance, defined ownership, and human oversights. The key principle in this is visibility, response, accountability must be unified, right? When cyber teams and physical teams and leaderships are working off the same risk picture, organizations move from reacting to an incident to actively preventing them, right? So from our perspective, integration isn't about adding more tools. It's about connecting risk, response, and decision-making in a way that strengthens overall resilience. So that's what my thoughts are.
I think great points, Paul. I think circling back to Craig, I think it's the era of super apps. Everybody wants integration of integration. Everything should be at the same click of a same one single pane of a window, and everything should happen from that. Whether preparedness, response, everything everybody wants in the same. Even Grab, I think you want to integrate more and more services like that. Everybody is doing the same way. Isn't it moving towards a more risk when we integrate a lot of things into the single thing? Does it create more risks to us, and how do we mitigate those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, potentially, of course, and I think Paul has given a very measured sort of view of how we might tackle that question, Pawan. But I'm just cautious of being frozen in the headlights, if I could use that analogy here, because we could easily, as risk professionals, talk ourselves into a corner whereby we become naysayers. Now, we're already sort of known as somewhat naysayers, and you could argue actually our role is to be that voice of risk, right? But it's what tone of voice do we choose to adopt?
Right.
And I'm not for a moment suggesting that we shouldn't continue to be the voice of risk, because actually, if the people on this call are not that voice, I think we all know there are very few other voices in corporate life that are going to be that voice. So I've not lost that voice, but I'm trying to think out of the box a little bit. I'm trying to see the opportunity here. We are taking in ideas as a Southeast Asian business, equally from, in this case, the US and China. And I'm sure I'm missing out some great ideas. Don't get me wrong, but principally from those two powers. So we've got great insight from what's happening with big tech in the US and also with what China's been doing during COVID to advance things like autonomous vehicles as one example. So here at Grab, we're very much encouraged to be early adopters. We're actually given 3 months last year to pause all projects and to have internal learning each week. We had learning objectives, we had workshops, and your own individual adoption was the first step here. I must say, the more I have used the tools, which took me a while, the more intuitive they seem to be becoming. And that's not me, that's the tools. And then the more benefits I'm seeing from using them responsibly to Wasim's, I wrote that down. So we've got to remain open. We've got to remain very flexible. We could devise a risk framework on this call for the current set of AI tools, and within 6 months, most of our companies would be using a brand new set. That's the pace, and 6 months is quite generous. So that's why I gave the analogy earlier of getting on board, understanding what it is we're trying to manage here. You can't do that from the sidelines. You need to adopt, you need to educate yourself. And then at the same time, in parallel, be that voice of risk and try to guide the organization to do things to protect ourselves, to be measured, protect data, for example. Data privacy is very important in a consumer-focused business. We happen to be a cloud-based business, which I think may give us some advantage, maybe not. But we can quite easily, the example I gave earlier of the Incident Manager app that I'm experimenting with, I'm currently experimenting with that in a totally segmented area. So I can spin up an area of our network, and I can develop that with all of the things that break. I can then test that. And, really, there's not much risk to the broader Grab operating environment because we're a cloud-based business. Many of your listeners on the call are either hybrid or probably not operating yet on a fully cloud. And cloud itself, many of us have heard years of concerns over the safety of the cloud, but it's already happened. And this is my underlying point, really. I'm not sure we're in a position to argue. I'm not saying we are, but I don't think we get very far by arguing that the risks outweigh the benefits, because the business is no longer listening. We need to be much more nimble than that, and that's what I've tried to be. But it is a big shift for us as traditional physical leaning risk managers.
Great. I think excellent point. And that's what everybody will have to move on. We don't have a choice. Right. Thanks. I think just a question to Andreas. I think unlike native technology companies like Grabs and which were born due to technology, and banking, which was very, very highly in technology, the companies like yours, because technology is now available to everyone, but the culture is different. So how do you merge the culture? Because ultimately it's about the people. If they do not change or if they are not agile, adoption is going to be difficult. So what's your challenge, and what is your advice to non-conventional companies to adopt technology and improving the culture on security or on technology?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pawan. I think in APAC especially, risk management will fail when it ignores culture, hierarchy, and also communication norms. The technology itself may be global, but risk perception is deeply local. I give you some examples. Escalation delays due to respect for hierarchy, for example. And then also reluctance to challenge automated decisions, and different thresholds for reporting incidents. And this makes effective risk management aligning technology with local behavior is very important. And also we need to also align training and also decision-making styles, or because otherwise even the best system will underperform. So basically what I'm trying to say is risk travels through people before it travels through systems, Pawan.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's just lead me to Wasim. The resiliency context and the way we look at resiliency has drastically changed in last. Yes, I feel COVID was the 9/11 moment for resiliency domain itself. How do you see the future of resiliency? How will companies be managing resiliency? How will it look like in future? If you can tell us 5 years, 10 years down the line, how will we look at it?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry, Andreas. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, I thought you.
So for Wasim, right? Wasim or?
Yeah, the question for Wasim. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pawan. And there is a question in the Q&A as well from Bharat. So I think he's genius. He's ahead of us. He's basically asked the similar question now, which I'm gonna answer now. See, the resilience is it gonna change. It's gonna change, but again, it's not gonna be drastically changed. But then we need to adapt to the change. So I have shared actually the article as well, and because this is what I've been speaking in multiple events as well, because we need to change our whole planning now. So the question Bharat asked is now that if your AI system is not performing the way it is supposed to be, should we continue? Let me just read his question. I think that would be good, nice question now. Should artificial intelligence be able to operate while subtly diminishing trust, fairness, and compliance with regulations? So now what we need to do is now, first of all, our typical scenarios that we normally plan is now, what if a system fail? What if we lose our building? Those binary scenarios now. So now first we need to introduce new scenarios where the AI model is not performing. And now we need to integrate with the cyber like data poisoning, how that can happen if someone intrude into if externally or internally. So now we need to change the scenarios. Now, also business impact analysis, because that goes back to his question now. We typically, if you are familiar with BIA, business impact analysis, we always have RTO, which is recovery time objective, and we have RPO, which is recovery point objective. Just to explain very quickly, RTO is like how quickly you can recover if you have a failure, and RPO is how much data you can afford to lose. Now, similarly, now we need to introduce new objectives into our BI, which is related to AI. What is our recovery objective for fairness? What is our recovery objectives for accuracy? Because now if the system is not performing the way it is, so first of all, we need to continuously monitor our AI systems. And then if it drifts from the original output, then we need to know what is our objective. Maybe a quick thing now to recover it quickly back to where it was originally, because you might have trained the model and then you might have changed from the initial output. So again, a lot of planning that we need. So we really need to go through. It's not a regular annual update to our BI and a BCP anymore. You need to really introduce and embed AI contingency scenarios into your planning. So it's not too late, but I think we should start thinking and then start implementing it now.
Great. Do you see any regulations coming around this or any ISO standard which will be integrating this?
Not yet. Not yet. And you know, those bodies, they have their own bureaucracy, they have their own process, and then it will take time. It will take time, but I think we should not delay it. I mean, if we start planning now, if we implement now, and then if there might be some changes, then it would be easy to adapt to those changes of the standards rather doing it from the scratch. But it might be too late by the time if we start when they have a standard. So, but ISO 42001, which is a standard on AI, I think that is a good way to start. And this is what I've been doing now, that not only implementing 42001, but integrating it with the ISO 22301, which is on continuity, or 27001 or information security. So I think that's a good start that we can, if you don't want to go for the certification route, at least comply to that standard.
Thanks. I'm slightly moving from the script. I have a very intriguing, some curiosity in this. When we started IT, there was only IT managers, and then the security managers started coming in. Paul, maybe I'll ask this question to everyone, but we'll start with you. Do you see in future or near future, now AI managers are started coming in? We'll have a security for AI managers, or a security managers for AI will also be a big role for future, like CISOs or AI security officers kind of thing will come in. And what is your view on where do they sit in the organizations? Where do they report to? How the future organizational structures will look like? And this I'll ask because all of you come from a very different background. Maybe a view from each one of you will also be welcome. Maybe Paul, start with you.
Well, I think that's a very interesting question. Yeah. So from the perspective, of course, when you look at the what conventional grounds has, right? You have the corporate security manager, you have the CSO who does IT security and things like that. And of course, with all these things and what we mentioned earlier, things are going to start converging, right? So who knows, right? There may be one, and I think in some organizations you're already seeing a convergence between the physical and the IT security into one overall CSO. So my perspective is eventually there may be one, and I think it will eventually be just grouped into one whole security domain. That's my perspective, right? But when that happens, I do not know. I think as it develops and it matures, I think it will come. It's AI is here to stay, and I think it's just a matter of time.
Great. Craig, your views on this?
Yeah, it's relating back to the earlier question on convergence. Personally, I think it's a business leadership question rather than a skill sets question. And the opportunity for the folks on this call should be as great as any other group of skill sets, because it should come down to our ability to manage people, process, finance, and stakeholders. And actually, we vastly underestimate the skill sets, the network, the contacts, the experience, the calmness under pressure that folks like us have. We very much undersell ourselves. So the real question really is, those opportunities definitely will come. The real question is, are we ready to grasp the opportunity, or will yet again will we be overtaken by better salesmen, basically storytellers that are better than us, which has happened to us perhaps over the last several decades.
By CEO, started with CISOs, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
correct. Yeah.
Great point. Andreas, your view, what is an opportunity for security managers in the new normal?
Yeah, I think in the area of security risk management, I think AI is already excellent at identifying anomalies, correlating events, and also flagging weak signals much earlier than humans can, right? But AI does not understand content, not content, context, intent, or consequence, especially in safety critical environments like maritime and energy operations. At least at the moment, maybe in the future they will be able to do so.
I think we don't know. Everybody's talking about future only. Wasim, where does it sit in an organization? Yes.
But I think the future challenge is managing automation bias and decision latency, where humans hesitate to override AI recommendations. And usually the successful organizations will be those that design AI systems with clear human decision authority, explainability, and not just accuracy. And we also have regular drills where AI is deliberately wrong or unavailable, like what I think Wasim mentioned earlier. AI should accelerate judgment and not replace responsibility.
So great point. Great point on this. Yeah. Wasim, your views, where the AI security managers will sit in the organization?
I think more responsibility on them, and then where I'm currently working is now. I mean the responsibility has been given to the security manager as well for the AI, so that at least it's all in one place. But I believe it's an opportunity for all, and I'll just finish my with one thing now. Like today, we are looking for a solution. I'm just giving you like an idea how the technology with an AI is going now. So we issued an RFP to a vendor, and then the vendor came with the demo and the interface that I've seen, and that this is our platform. But basically what he did, he took our RFP document, he uploaded into a tool which can create an interface, and then once they were done, I just took the snapshot of their interface and I used in those tools, like there are a number of those tools. I replicated the whole thing in 15 minutes, and I said, this is what he did.
Very interesting, intelligent guy.
Yeah, but see, I mean, I will give you like how I figured that this is what he did, because one of the requirements was about the drones. And then one of the menu items was drone management.
Okay.
And how can someone has such a customized, in the just at the RFP stage. So what I'm saying is now there's so much into AI, and I'm intensely using all those AI tools. So I think that we need to use it, but use it responsibly.
But
So I think get onto YouTube, get onto, like Perplexity, or, there are so many tools that can help us, but use it responsibly.
Sure. Thank you. Responsibility is a word, I think, coming from everyone, I think.
Yeah.
Just we have 2 minutes to end. Our question, if all of you would be 30 years younger and still be in the security industry. I know people will say we don't want to be in security industry, but if you were, what is your advice? What will you do differently with the new things which are available? We'll start with Craig.
I would echo your sentiments that I'm not sure I would have landed there. I wish I would have
That's
not.
not
But
the option. That's why I said
yeah, that's a
not the option
given.
yet.
I don't think I'd change them though, Pawan. Actually, they are still the things that I think I'm working on today, as opposed to technical skill. And they are collaboration, relationship building, understanding the business, and being able to explain the value of what we do. So storytelling, in a word.
Storytelling. I think that's, yeah, nobody told us the importance of storytelling. I think that's what young people who are listening to this should take away. Andreas, your views?
Yeah. So basically, if I have a time machine,
yes,
and I can tell myself 30 years earlier, okay? That is very interesting question. I think I will tell myself that AI would become a very big topic in the future, because when I was still at the university, I also learned about AI, Pawan. But at that time, because of the relatively low processing power, we could not do anything that is very interesting like the one that we can do easily right now.
Right.
So maybe I would tell that I will tell myself that to learn deeply about technology, because that will be very beneficial, yeah, for future me.
Sure. Great.
Yeah.
And this is the
Thank
question to
you.
all the participants also. I think, why don't you put your thoughts also? If you had 10, 20, 30 years more, or you are behind, what will you do differently to improve? Meanwhile, I think we'll take inputs from Wasim. Your views?
My views mean I don't want to use AI. Because I know you accept or not, we are leading to a disaster.
Yeah.
I think that's the reality. But again, we have to put the guardrails to avoid the disaster as much as we can.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Wasim. Paul?
Well, for me, 30 years younger, right? I guess it's just like the ASIS next gen. I speak to all these young people, right? So for me, of course, learning new things, being open, being flexible to adopt new things is key. But in essence, I wouldn't really change much, in the sense I always believe that to be a good security manager, you need to be a good salesman internally, right? You're selling security in-house. You need to network. You need to be a good storyteller, like what Craig mentioned. Like I think earlier Victor also mentioned it during one of the other panel sessions. I think those are key attributes in making a person successful in this area of work. And that's my view.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, I think. And we are dot on time. Thanks a lot for amazing insights. I think the only thing which I'll take away, there are so many, but I think one thing which really hit is agility, convenience is the future. We don't like, it is the future. But we have to be responsible. And it is all upon all of us to make this thing more responsible, because if it is not responsible, then it can create disasters. So it is upon us to maybe the voice, as Craig mentions, maybe the voice of carrying the bad news, but we'll still have to continue doing that, and even so more in the new normal, I think. And I think really thanks to all of you, Craig, Wasim, Paul, and Andreas, for amazing insights and discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thanks once again.
Over to you, Hap. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. That was truly a fantastic conclusion to our very eventful day. The pioneers of our industry have truly left us with a lot to reflect upon. And as we approach the end of this event, I would like to invite Neelkant Iyer, Chief Revenue Officer for MitKat Advisory, to please sum up and provide us with his concluding thoughts on the matter.
Thank you, Hayat. Can anybody hear me, everybody?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Incredible day, and I think still almost all the people who had joined us at the start, the number has been growing all the while. So obviously a very, very insightful event, and I would like to thank all the speakers, all the attendees, all the thought leaders. So I have a easy job, which is to take notes as all the speakers were speaking, try to capture the key insights that they were giving us during the event and try to kind of summarize it at the end. That's the easy part of the job. The tough part is to accurately capture and represent it, because all the speakers that we had are, experts, thought leaders in their space. So I'll try my best, and my apologies if I have not done a good job. So broadly, I think we had a great starting session by General Sudhir Sharma. And the key insights from his session is, we are clearly moving from a global cooperation kind of framework to a competition. So the competition has become very intense, across nation states. Obviously, APAC, which is a complicated region to start off with, there is, greater, competition that we are seeing. In terms of the key insights again that he talked about is owning your intelligence. I think earlier there was a lot of cooperation when it came to intelligence. I think the key insight there is to start owning your intelligence. This is not just true for nation states, but also true for individual organizations. The other thing that he talked about is that global risks are no longer cyclic or episodic. I think that has changed. They are structural in nature, and we are seeing a current fractured global order. I think that's the big challenge that we are seeing. I think that also echoed through all the other panels that we heard. Pretty much the same theme was repeating in different ways, and I'll try to capture some of those. I think some memorable quotes that the general gave us. I think these are two things, and I will probably, towards the end, try to link it to all that the other panels were also talking. I think strategic autonomy is a mirage, right? I think that's a very, and he gave it right at the start, and I could hear that across the whole event. And just-in-time resilience. I think not much before, and definitely not after. And these themes have been resonating through the event. So again, thank you, General Sir, for that insight. Now coming to the first panel, which was the APAC risk outlook, I'll go by panelist. Again, thank you, Sushil Sir, for moderating the panel and capturing the ethos of the panel. The first was Danny, Global Security Officer at Mastercard. I think one of the key things Danny talked about was how the crisis, the whole idea of crisis is very, very interwoven, and it's not again episodic, but in a permanent crisis, right? And the main thing is any organization, individual, nation state has to be comfortable in an uncomfortable environment. Another, I think, interesting thing that he talked about, I'll just, kind of re-quote him, AI is magical, but AI is not magic. And ungoverned AI is like black magic, right? So I think that's so true. I think the most of the governments are still working on governance structures, but again, in one of the later panels, we heard speakers talking about that you can't wait for those governance structures to be in place because AI is real and now. So you need to build. It's like an F1 car, right? You need to fix the wheels while driving at 300 miles per hour. So largely that's what Danny talked about. Another important thing, which actually I didn't hear in any of the other panel, I did hear a little bit of it, is on post quantum cryptography. Probably quantum is 7, 8, 10 years away or maybe near, but a couple of panelists talked about this. If quantum really happens, nobody is going to announce it, right? And are you preparing for that event? Because if quantum does happen and does become a reality, that's essentially all your existing security structures kind of go for a toss, right? So how are you planning for that? It's a tough question to answer, but at least it's an important point to consider in the list of things that you as an organization should be doing. Sanjay had some interesting points on, how to build for resilience and reliance when you're talking of complex, costly, and longer supply chains. Again, Asia Pacific is a very complicated region with multiple different supply chains operating at the same time. So being largely an exporter or an export-oriented market for the rest of the world, the supply chains are just much more complex than anywhere else in the world. Gave a lot of insights around how to, build resilience and reliance into that entire, supply chain infrastructure. Then Nikita actually motivated a lot of us to start investing in gold. So we are, seeing countries, many of the countries bringing back their gold, from other places back to their home country. And I think she kind of gave us insights as to why that's happening. One of the reasons is potentially a gold-backed currency that might operate for the ASEAN and the BRICS region, essentially making any kind of sanctions and other things, kind of things of the past. And then obviously, being, that would probably become an alternative to SWIFT. So again, a very important point from resilience and management of risks. If that happens, how is it going to affect your current systems? How would it affect your supply chain? How would it affect your vendors? Are those vendors part of this alliance that might, that is taking shape? I think those are the questions that, leaders like yourself on the call should be ready to answer. Right? Karan talked about the main, risks around, why are all these things happening, and what are the big challenges that he sees in Asia Pacific. So he used the word night, if I'm not mistaken, not in training, not in education. So a lot of unemployment is happening, a lot of loss of trust. He did mention some countries which he feels are going to go through some challenges over the next year and a half. I think how do you manage those risks of those kind of developments that are happening in the different regions in Asia Pacific? Vagisha had good insights, and I think some great statements, right? We're not in a temporary headwind kind of stuff. This is our operating environment in Asia Pacific for the near foreseeable future. She was also another person who talked about quantum and how quantum could be a huge disruptor. I think a very insightful discussion on that panel. We go on to the next thing that happened on the agenda, which was the APAC, Mars 2026 unveiling, and I'd like to thank Athreya and Abhijit for that. Athreya talked about 5 different things: natural disasters, geopolitical hostility, economic slowdown, trade uncertainty, cyber insecurity, and extremism as the 5 areas. And obviously, the report has details by country, by region, what is the outlook for the next year or so, right? And then again, Abhijit had a wonderful presentation and demo on how to kind of manage. So a very important statement that I heard in that talk is prepare and prevent rather than repair and repent. And how Abhijit showed how you can use a platform like Data Surfer to kind of prepare and prevent risks in almost near real time kind of a scenario. Moving on to the next panel on trends in intelligence, security, and loss prevention. Thanks, Mitesh. Mitesh, our leader in the Asia Pacific region. All of you know him. I think this was a very interesting panel where Victor talked about proactive resilience. While you have strong reactive capabilities, I think no people are no longer questioning whether, or no longer focusing on whether you need to have strong capabilities or not. But I think proactive resilience came out very, very strongly. We spoke about security, leader skills, and how it needs to be multifaceted. And one theme that I heard across all the groups is how as security, resilience, risk leaders, we need to be good storytellers. We need to be intelligence-driven decision makers rather than the other way around. Fabrice had very, very good insights, and I think one thing that I took out from what Fabrice talked about is data is king, and that security should not act like a standalone function. Data from all parts of the organization, the environment, and the ecosystem that you work on. I think a good leader in this space of risk, resilience, and security is someone who can gain insights much earlier than when event happens, right? Uh, Khairun Nizam had very good insights on the trends in the future of security, and how professionals can become force multipliers by leveraging AI to prevent, prepare, and react. I think these three words are self-explanatory. Jason had a lot of insights around climate risk, and how organizations can use data, look for signals, and action on it, and why climate is such a critical part of the risks. And in fact, that's also covered in the Outlook report on why climate probably is one of the top risks that every organization need to kind of plan for and build for. Then we had the next panel, the final panel, led by Pawan, and that was around trends, opportunities, and risks when it comes to technology security. So we had Andreas, who gave us a lot of insights, again coming from the shipping, oil, and energy kind of industry. How security is transforming in these kind of mega infrastructure projects where you can't move things and people very quickly overnight just because there is a risk. He talked a lot about the physical digital convergence, building of fallback systems, and essentially I think my key takeaway from that is to not replace responsibility. Moving on to Wasim of Risk Professionals, a lot of insights around how to use AI responsibly, and how to build guardrails around that, and from bring your own device to bring your own AI, and how to build governance structures around it. And I think uh, again, the insight there was with AI, actually, it's more responsibility that actually falls on leaders in the risk, resilience, and security space, rather than the other way around. Probably for developers and all the other people, it's a productivity tool. Here, it's actually more responsibility. Moving on to Paul, I think talked about what are the kind of challenges that are there in terms of how can you look at your assets, your risks, and look at the technology to support those risks that the organization kind of faces. One of the insights was how to connect the risk response and technology factors, and get an integrated view of all those things so that you can preempt issues before they actually happen. And last but not the least, Craig from Crab had a lot of insights. I think again, even in this panel, people talked about in terms of skills, storytelling to be a very, very important area that everybody should be focusing on, and not get frozen in the headlights, and how to be effective voice of risk within the organization. I think one insight that I really liked in this panel was about the age of micro simulations. So I think overall, a lot of things to take home for all of us. A lot of very, very insightful questions on the chat that I looked through, and I learned a lot. I hope that all of you did as well. Feel free to reach out to us if you need any kind of information, either on Data Surfer, or you have any further questions for the panelists. And thank you very much, and have a very good evening. Thank you. Back to you, Hayat.
Thank you so much, Mr. Iyer, for those comprehensive concluding remarks. And thank you all for your outstanding participation and engagement at MitKat's second event of the year in 2026. If any of your questions went unanswered, I apologize and encourage you to directly connect with our esteemed panelists and to delve deeper into their perspectives. Please do follow us on LinkedIn and other social media channels to stay updated, and I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you all.